number of hours every 6 years, Filipinos get a chance to chart their future by electing leaders to more than 18,000 positions, including the president. The Filipino Votes on this big day. More than 65 million voters making their voices heard by one shade on the ballot and making a stand for a better life emerging from the health and economic crisis and against corruption, crime, illegal drugs, and many more. On this day that will go down in history, the future of the country is at stake. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022.
Good afternoon, I'm Pinky Webb. Join me in the next few hours as we continue to give you live and in-depth coverage of this year's national and local elections. It's been 8 hours since polling precincts opened today. Filipinos are choosing the country's next set of leaders, from president, vice president, 12 senators, 316 members of the House of Representatives, including 63 party list members, and about 18,000 local positions. 10 are vying for the highest office of the land, 9 for the vice presidency. Our news teams are in full force covering the candidates and the electoral process. Our AC Nichols is in PPCRV's command center in UST Manila. Senior correspondent Anjo Alemario is in Camarines Sur for Lenny Robredo. Melissa Lopez stands by at the PICC, while George Cahiles is monitoring election activities in Cavite. We also have Tristan Nodalo in Quezon City. Our Amer Santos is also in UST Manila. Rex Remigio will give updates from the Uniteam campaign in Mandaluyong. Paolo Barcelon is in Manila for Isko Moreno. Our senior correspondent David Santos is in Davao to cover the Duterte family. In Cebu, we have Caroline Bonquin. In Sarangani, Zian Arcangel. In Rizal Province, Chrissy de Matulac is covering Leody de Guzman. Stanley Gahete is in Manila. Senior correspondent Lois Calderon in Ilocos Norte to cover Bongbong Marcos's family. And we have Paige Javier in Laguna. All presidential candidates have cast their votes. We were able to cover 6 of them. Presidential candidate and Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson was one of the early birds who cast his vote around 7 this morning. We now talk to our CNN correspondent, George Cahiles. George.
Well, Pinky, it was a quick 60-minute voting process for presidential candidate Senator Ping Lacson earlier. He arrived here at the Bayan Luma 1 Elementary School before 7 in the morning. He granted a quick interview before entering his precinct. He was prioritized since he is a senior citizen. Wala siyang kodigo, memorize daw niya ang mga kailangan niyang iboto. When asked about the senators he voted for, Lacson said he didn't vote for full 12 senators. Lacson said he felt relieved after voting, relieved because they were able to finish the campaign in good health. After voting, his plan for today, Pinky, is just to watch shows on Netflix. While he seemed very relaxed, the presidential candidate says he's still optimistic that he'll win. But whatever the results will be, he is ready to accept it. Lacson's message to fellow presidential hopefuls: whoever wins, he or she must forget about all animosities, bitterness, and hatred brought about by the campaign. Lacson says the next leader of the country must be a leader for all Filipinos. Back to you.
Thanks a lot. George Cahiles reporting from Cavite. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno submitted his ballot earlier today in Magat Salamat Elementary School in Tondo in Manila. Our correspondent, Paolo Barcelon, tells us more. Paolo, go ahead.
Pinky, good afternoon. Mayor Moreno received what appears to be a VIP treatment as he entered Magat Salamat Elementary School around 11:20 this morning. He stayed for around 15 to 20 minutes, went up straight to the third floor polling precinct where he cast his ballot. But along the way, Pinky, he was greeted by voters in line as well as people who just wanted to see a glimpse of the Manila mayor. His voting process wasn't really that long, and he thanked those who, or the voters who would choose him, and he promised that if he is elected, he will not disappoint those who voted for him. He was asked a question earlier about how he would deal with the incident of vote counting machines that are breaking down. He urged Filipinos to, quote, "Tsagain natin," to stay the course and just participate in the electoral process. As for his plans, Pinky, he says he intends to go back to City Hall for some work, and then he plans to spend the rest of the day with his family in order. And he left instructions to Acción Democrático, his political party, to monitor the outcome of the counting of the elections. Pinky.
Thanks a lot. Paolo Barcelon reporting from Manila. Let's head out to Batac City, the bailiwick of former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Joining us on the line, our senior correspondent, Lois Calderon. Lois, go ahead.
Pinky, former Senator Bongbong Marcos has reached the finish line of his presidential bid. He arrived here at the Mariano Marcos Memorial Elementary School to cast his vote a little over an hour after this polling precinct opened at 6 a.m. This is his father's hometown, Batac, in Ilocos Norte, the bailiwick of the Marcos family that's expected to deliver about 36,000 votes as per Comelec. That's just Batac alone. With Marcos was his son, Sandro, but the latter did not cast his vote because Sandro was registered in Lawag City, 1st District, where he is running for a congressional seat. This school has a security perimeter of 30 to 50 meters for non-voters. Journalists are boxed out. So it was kind of tough to get near Marcos for an interview. The only question that he entered in it, that he answered, was that, "Kumusta po yung pagboto nyo?" And then he said, "Maayos naman, maayos naman." But as you saw in the live footage we had earlier as the events unfolded, Marcos was whisked away by his security to the classroom, and through that, to the jalousie windows, we journalists filmed the 15 minutes Marcos lingered in the polling precinct. But it's not just us watching Marcos. I was beside this middle-aged woman who squeezed in, saying she wanted to see him. And then there was this 70-year-old lady who even tried to climb through the fence to get a glimpse of Marcos. So that's the kind of support we saw here from Batac. And then he made his way through the crowd, and we still tried to get him before he boarded and joined his convoy. Now, former First Lady Imelda Marcos arrived a few minutes after her son left. She was wearing a red Filipiniana gown. She also had an aide as she walked slowly across the lobby to the polling place, the same precinct where her son cast his vote. Pinky, what we know is that Marcos already left Ilocos Norte and arrived there in Manila, in his headquarters in Mandaluyong City, shortly after noon. Pinky?
Thanks a lot, Lois Calderon. From Ilocos Norte, we now go to Cainta, Rizal, where labor leader and presidential bet Calyodi de Guzman went to the polls. Let's talk to Chrissy De Matula. Chrissy, go ahead. We'll speak to Chrissy a little while regarding Calyodi de Guzman's voting. I think she's back on the line. Chrissy, go ahead, please. Chrissy? Okay, Chrissy is supposed to be reporting to us from Cainta, Rizal, kung saan po bumoto si Calyodi de Guzman kaninang umaga. That happened before lunchtime, and let's find out from Chrissy a little later on how that went. I did see na nagbigay din ng panayam si Calyodi sa mga media na nag-cover po sa kanya sa Cainta. Let's go to, si Senator Manny Pacquiao. He voted in Sarangani Province. Our Zian Arcangel is there. Zian, go ahead.
Senator Manny Pacquiao stayed just under 30 minutes at Kiamba Central Elementary School this morning to vote. Upon arrival, Pacquiao headed straight to his voting precinct and did not anymore fall in line. Pacquiao spent around 16 minutes shading his ballot. After this, he fed the ballot into the vote counting machine, and his forefinger was marked with indelible ink. Pacquiao said that he just prayed this morning before going to Sarangani from General Santos City. He believes that the will of the voters, particularly the poor, will be evident in this coming election. Pacquiao says he plans to spend the next few hours and possibly even days at his home in General Santos City while waiting for the results of the election. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Z and Arcangel. Let's go back to Chrissy de Matulac. She covered Calyodi de Guzman when he voted before noon today. Chrissy?
Yes, Vicky. Presidential candidate and Leader Calyodi de Guzman arrived at the Cainta Elementary School in Rizal in high spirits. He was with his family and some members of the Partido Lakas Masa. Before de Guzman casted his vote, he said that his campaign was a success, and regardless of the results, will continue to fight for the rights of the workers. He said he will be satisfied with whatever the turnout is, since this is his first time to run for president. He got in one of the classrooms and was able to cast his vote at around 7:30 in the morning. We also talked to his wife, Marieta, who said that they were not nervous the night before the elections. She simply said that the Guzman family is proud of their patriarch and the journey that she went through. After the elections, the Guzman family said they were on their way to brunch to celebrate the end of a long campaign period. The Guzman's running mate, Juan Bello, also casted his vote at the Julio Rodriguez High in Quezon. Back to you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot, Chrissy de Matulac. The Commission on Elections had a media briefing earlier. Melissa Lopez joins us from the PICC. Mel, what's the update from the COMELEC?
That's right, Pinky. COMELEC has reported 143 defective vote counting machines and 124 SD cards needing replacement and reprogramming so far in this today, our election day. Overall, COMELEC received over 800 reports of malfunctioning VCMs, but most of these are minor cases. So these include problems in power source, only to find out that the machine was not plugged into the outlet properly, or some faulty rollers and scanners. This is relatively small compared to the 108,000 vote counting machines available nationwide and against 1,900 backup machines on standby. Now, as a voter, you have two options. If the machine in your precinct conks out, you can either stand by to wait for the machine to be repaired, or if it would take too long, you can sign a waiver so that you can turn over your ballot to the electoral board so that they will feed the ballot for you in a batch after the voting period once the VCM is repaired. Pinky.
Mel, let's talk about that again, because there have been a number of reports from different precincts kung saan ayaw kasi nung ilang botante na hindi sila yung magpasok ng kanilang balota doon sa vote counting machine. Mabuti na ipinaliwanag mo sa amin yan because meron nga silang dalawang options. Uulitin ko lang yung sinabi ni Mel kanina. Sabi ni Mel, either you fill up your ballot, kasi na-fill up mo na yung iyong balota, but the only thing you can do is to sign a waiver and let the board, election board, be the ones to feed your ballot to the vote counting machine. And besides, if you look at also some suggestions on Twitter from some people, meron naman kasi daw din dong mga watchers na pwede ring daw magbantay para sa inyo. That's the first option, Mel. Now, the second option would also be you wait, you don't vote, wag munang i-shade, wag munang kunin yung mga balota, at hintayin nyo until the VCM is working, because if you are intent on the one feeding that ballot to the machine, you're going to have to wait until the VCMs are working. Mel, so yun pa, what other suggestions did or advice did the COMELEC give para dun sa mga botante? Because it's still open. The polling precincts are still open until 7 p.m. tonight.
Right, Pinky, that is an option. Actually, those two are options, but COMELEC actually encourages that you'd rather turn over your ballot for safekeeping. It should be kept in a separate envelope anyway, since the problem with waiting for the VCM to be repaired is may ipon yung tao, and it could actually run counter to the social distancing protocols that COMELEC is trying so hard to maintain now that we are having elections in the middle of the pandemic.
All right. So yes, really the suggestion is you entrust it to the election board and to the watchers there, because you don't want more people in the polling precincts. As mentioned over and over again, Mel, di ba, there are only more or less 10 voters that are allowed in a particular polling precinct. All right, thanks a lot. Melissa Lopez there reporting. The Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting will monitor election results from the University of Santo Tomas. AC Nichols joins us now from Manila. AC, what's happening there now?
Pinky, vote counting machines that are not working and names missing from voters list are the most reported concerns or issues to the PPCRV call center in the first few hours of voting. And the church-based groups, poll watchers on the ground are giving the same feedback as well. PPCRV urges voters, do not give up your ballots.
AC, go ahead.
Well, we're supposed to be playing a soundbite from PPCRV Chairman Myla Villanueva. I'm not sure what happened there, but let me just read what she said earlier. No? She said, kung mahihintay po ninyo, baka maaaring maghintay kayo. Kung merong PPCRV volunteers doon sa polling precincts at kung nasa mga guru na yung mga balota, ay bantayan po ninyo muna hanggang masubo sa VCM. So this is running counter to what the COMELEC is saying, na ini-encourage na lang nila yung mga tao to entrust. No? The PPCRV naman is saying na if you can wait, if the voters can wait, then they are urging the voters na maghintay na lang muna so they can para sila yung magpapasok talaga ng mga balota nila doon sa vote counting machines. Myla Villanueva, the chairman of PPCRV, made the rounds earlier today in various polling centers around Metro Manila, and she also directed PPCRV watchers and volunteers in precincts with failing VCMs to secure the ballots. In the meantime, Manila Archbishop Jose Cardinal Advincula will hold a mass here at the PPCRV Command Center at 6 p.m. tonight. And that's also around the same time we're expecting volunteers to start to come in, as the PPCRV parallel count will begin soon after precincts close. And the results are transmitted from the VCMs to COMELEC servers. Now, aside from the quick count, the PPCRV will also hold will also carry out a manual audit of results reflected on election returns. And this is another way of checking for discrepancies. If there was no error or manipulation, then the digitally transmitted figures should match the data on election returns. Pinky?
Yeah, AC, you were saying a while ago that what you said, what the PPCRV is suggesting, actually rounds counter. Opposite doon sa sinabi ni Mel naman na sinasabi ng COMELEC. Again, balikan natin yung problema. Dahil nga meron talaga mga botante na sila mismo ang gustong magsubo ng balota doon sa makina, doon sa mga vote counting machines. Dahil pag sinubo mo yan, di ba, AC, lalabas yung resibo. Paglabas ng resibo, check mo yung resibo kung nag-match dun sa binoto mo. Tapos tsaka mo i-drop yung resibo na yon. So, PPCRV naman is saying, dyan, sa inyo, bantayan ng mga botante yung kanilang balota. So, ibig sabihin, tama ba, AC, kung sira ang VCM, ang sinasabi ba ng PPCRV, wag muna silang bumoto hanggang ma-repair o maayos ang vote counting machine?
Exactly, Pinky, kasi nga ang daming pumapasok na reports na hindi makaboto yung mga tao dahil hindi gumagana ang VCM. If the COMELEC is encouraging them to just go ahead and vote and entrust your ballots to the electoral board, the PPCRV is saying, mahaba pa naman yung araw, baka pwedeng makapaghintay pa kayo, no? Kasi i-guard nyo yung boto nyo, no? Iba yung ikaw pa rin ang magpapasok ng balota sa VCM and makikita mo yung election return. Because what happens, Pinky, is if you leave your ballot, they make you sign a waiver, and essentially what you're giving up is your right to check or validate through the election return na, yes, to validate what your votes, basically. So the PPCRV is saying, if you can wait, then wait. But the problem is, since we're in the middle of a pandemic, ayun na nga, kung maraming maghihintay dahil ang daming VCM na nag-breakdown, ang problema naman doon is maiipon naman ng tao sa maliliit na polling precincts, Pinky.
Doon magkakaproblema, especially dahil nga may COVID at kailangan ipatupad ang social distancing. All right, maraming salamat. Thank you. AC Nichols there reporting to us. Let's go to Cebu, the most vote-rich province in the country. RPN-DY KC Cebu's Hubert Malasarte is on the line. Hubert, what's the latest there?
Salamat, Pinky, at magandang hapon. May isang konsyal sa barangay Lapu-Lapu City ang binaril patay kagabi, bisperas ng eleksyon. 3 di pa kilalang suspitsado ang tinuring ngayong mga suspect. Ang biktima sa pamamaril kagabi ay kinilalang si Jose Queros, 28 anyos, incumbent councilor sa barangay Tungasan, isang isla sa Olango, part of Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. 3 di pa kilalang mga salarin ang biglang dumating sa karinderya kung saan kumain ang biktima ng hapunan at walang awang pinagbabaril ang biktima gamit ang 9mm automatic pistol na nagresulta sa pagkamatay ng biktima. Nagtamo ng 4 na sugat ang iba't ibang parte ng katawan ni Queros. Ayon sa mga saksi, matapos ang pamamaril, nagmadaling tumakas ang mga suspects. Hindi pa na-establish sa Lapu-Lapu City Police kung election-related ba ang naturang pamamaril. Patuloy ngayon ang hot pursuit operation laban sa mga suspitsado. Ang biktima ay kilalang diehard supporter sa kampo ni Congresswoman Paz Radasa na tumakbo pagka-mayor sa Lapu-Lapu City. Meron tayong nakuhang latest update tungkol dito just a few hours ago, Pinky. Napag-alaman natin na ang grupo ni Congresswoman Paz Radasa ay nag-anunsyo na magbigay siya ng 300,000 pesos reward money para sa kung sino ang makapagbigay informasyon o makapagturo kung saan ang mga suspects upang mahuli at mabigyan hustisya ang pagkamatay ni Konsehal Queros na isang diehard supporter ni Congresswoman Paz Radasa dito sa Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. Ito si Bob Malasarte sa RPN-DYKC Cebu reporting para sa CNN Philippines.
Hubert, matanong ko lang, wala pang suspetsya ang pulis, wala pang leads, meron ba daw CCTV around the area? Meron ka bang nakalap na karagdagang impormasyon hinggil dito sa pagpatay sa konsehal?
Sa ngayon, Pinky, nahihirapan ang mga pulis kasi ang lugar kung saan nangyari itong krimen, isang isla malapit sa mainland ng Lapu-Lapu City. Ang problema, nung tinamaan ng audit, ang isla ng Ulango, wasak lahat ng mga yung mga CCTV doon. So nahihirapan ngayon ang pulis sa pagkalap ng kahit anong mga magamit nilang mga ebidensya or gamitin nila para matukoy kung sino yung mga suspitsado na nagsuot ng bonnet, yung 3.
Oo. Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, RPN DYXC Cebu's Hubert Malasarte reporting to us from Cebu. Mula po sa Visayas, let's go to Mindanao. We have a report from Eutemio Villahermosa ng RPN DXKP Pagadian sa Zamboanga del Sur. Eutemio, kamusta ang sitwasyon dyan?
Dito sa Pagadian, Pinky, katatapos ko lang magbutar. Galing ako sa loob. Wala namang insidente dito na nangyari tulad ng na-report sa kasamahan natin. Generally, at least of the moment, Pinky, peaceful yung election dito sa Pagadian City. Peaceful ang mga tao. Pumila naman at saka nag-ano sila ng social distancing dito sa area namin.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Eutemio Villa Hermosa ng RPN DXKP Pagadian, reporting mula po dyan sa Zamboanga del Sur. And we still have a couple of more hours before polling precincts close today. Just a reminder to voters that you have until 7 p.m. to cast your votes. We will be taking a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes 2022. How has social media impacted this year's political exercise? Our senior correspondent and anchor Ruth Cabal has that story.
Expect politicians to tap social media in a big way beginning in the next elections. With COVID-19 limiting physical movement and digital becoming the new medium, candidates will woo voters mostly through a screen. Political strategist Alan Herman says social media will be the go-to platform for campaigning.
There's this thing called APC. That's the magic formula for any elections. So that's awareness to choice. In terms of establishing and creating that awareness, definitely nothing can beat social media in terms of breadth and scope.
Herman says social media allows them to gain better insights for their campaigns. As of January 2021, 89 million Filipinos are into social media. That number includes voters. While the official campaign period is still in February, some aspirants are making their presence felt online. The unregulated medium is a greenfield for candidates.
The best that COMELEC can do is regulate the expenses that you might incur by holding a social media campaign. Again, as far as content is concerned, that will still be very lightly regulated, if at all.
Besides regulation, another battlefront is disinformation. So how can social media platforms protect voters and the polls? Twitter labels tweets with misleading information. It also posts warnings, urging people to read articles before sharing them to others. Twitter bans political advertisements globally. It says the reach of political messages must be earned, not bought. Facebook and Instagram remove accounts and posts that violate guidelines. Facebook also has a fact-checking program for public posts, but politicians are not covered. The platform said censorship should be done by the users, not the tech companies. As for YouTube, it has guidelines prohibiting misleading content and deceptive practices related to elections. Despite social media's benefits, Herman says there's more to getting elected besides online campaigns.
At the end of the day, it doesn't stand on its own legs. If you're not taking your social media campaign offline, it will fail miserably.
Voters will still have to do the offline work and head to the polling precincts to choose their next set of leaders.
There are 65.8 million registered voters who can be accommodated in over 106,000 clustered precincts and more than 37,000 voting centers nationwide. This is up from the almost 62 million voters registered in 2019 polls. At least 2.8 million are first-time voters aged 18 to 19. 51% of the total voting population are women. There are 1.6 million registered overseas voters. Most of them are the Middle East and in the United States. Senior citizens comprise the biggest number of voters at more than 10.2 million. More than half of the voters are between 18 and 39 years old. The highest among them are those 22 to 24 years old and 25 to 29 years old with 8.6 million each. In terms of numbers of voters, Calabarzon is the most vote-rich region, followed by the National Capital Region and Central Luzon. Cebu, Cavite, and Pangasinan are the top three most vote-rich provinces, while Quezon City, Manila, and Davao City are the most vote-rich cities in the country. Joining us this afternoon, we have former presidential spokesperson and political consultant Edwin Lacerda and sociologist Nicole Curata. Nicole and Edwin, so good to see you both again.
Good to see you as well.
Thank you for having us.
May 9, it's election day. I just want to start with your thoughts, overall thoughts on this election. Nicole, let's start with you.
I am expecting high voter turnout. The highest voter turnout, I think, is in 1998 when President Estrada won the presidency. That was 86%. And then 2016 was the second highest voter turnout at 84%. I am expecting the voter turnout will be higher this year. We already saw a lot of people queuing in polling precincts patiently, very early. Of course, it's very upsetting that people have to wait very long, but I think that's also an indication that people are keen and excited to vote.
Why were you saying that you're expecting a bigger voter turnout this time around?
Because this campaign season has been incredibly intense, and we can see passionate voters from different candidates, not just in the two sides that we are seeing as the front runners in this election, but we are seeing intense commitment, especially from younger people in supporting their candidates.
Edwin, what about you? Do you agree with Nicole?
I agree with Nicole. I think yesterday I felt I had a culture shock because it was so quiet. You know, the whole so many months, starting from October, all the volunteers came out. The very notable characteristic of this campaign is the all-out volunteerism from all sides. The passion is so intense. It's the first time that people were spending their own money. People were going out, and the house was not just done on the local level, but on the national level. So there are many firsts here, and like Nicole said, we expect the turnout to be high. Last presidential elections, it was around 81.9%. So hopefully it'll be bigger despite of the existence of the pandemic.
So let's talk about that. 82% when Duterte won, 86% when ERAP won, tama ba? And what did you say, Nicole? The highest was during ERAP's time at 86%,
That's
and the
right.
second one was Pinoy's time.
Duterte.
Oh, Duterte, sorry, at 82%.
Yeah.
Okay, and then now it will seem as if it's going to be a higher turnout. Okay, of course, we're talking about percentage. Siyempre, mas marami naman po talagang botante ngayon at 65.75. Normally, we range at the 80% voter turnout. Talk about social media first and foremost, how this is becoming, well, definitely a way of life, a way of campaigning. Nicole, is it still, I mean, if we were to compare social media and, let's say, television, the traditional way of getting your news, your information, how has it changed?
Mm-hmm.
And what would the balance be between or versus social media and television?
Yes, Meet the Millennials had a special episode about this, and we talked to content creators, and one of their feedback is that because of social media, particularly TikTok, citizens are not just consumers of information. We are also content creators. We also create information. And that's why campaigns right now are more decentralized. The core message of a candidate cannot just come from the campaign headquarters. A lot of these campaign strategies emerge from the grassroots. And it's really a matter of ordinary citizens being creative in crafting that message for their candidates. That's why if you look at campaign paraphernalia right now, iba-iba yung design, iba-iba yung appeal. It's, I think, a product of social media because our realities are very much fragmented right now.
Okay, what about you, Edwin? Your thoughts on that?
Well, tama sabi ni Nicole, talagang decentralized na siya. And like the volunteerism, in fact, for the first few months of the Lenny campaign, there was no tagline. So kanya-kanyang tagline ang ginawa until lumabas yung gobyernong tapat. No? But by and large, it's really decentralized. But the role of TV plays a lot pa rin. In terms of going out of your echo chamber, the candidates were all out in putting out their ads, no? Because that's the only way that you can disseminate your message across outside of the echo chambers. Otherwise, you have to you will be staying within your own chamber, not sa social media.
Let's define echo chamber for those who might not. Tagalogin natin. Ano ba yung echo chamber? Kasi maraming nagsasabi din, Nicole and Edwin, no, for those who are in your echo chamber. Nakikita nyo lang all the time are the people who think like you, believe like you, for the most part. Hindi ba? And then it becomes a bit of a... Sometimes it becomes a little unfortunate because you stay in this chamber that doesn't really represent the whole country, the whole Philippines, all 110 million Filipinos. Define echo chamber, Edwin.
Yung sa social media kasi, ang rules ng social media is para profit basis, no, para kumita rin ng social media company, they will feed you what you want to see. So nakikita doon sa binabasa nila, nakikita ng social media company, ito ang gusto makita ni Nicole. So ito ang ibibigay natin sa kanya. Algorithm ang tinatawag doon. No? So kaya kung ikaw ay makabongbong or makaleni, ang lahat na nakikita mo kay bongbong, lahat yun na lang. O kay Lenny, nakikita mo lahat ng rally, ang laki-laki. Kaya marami sa mga taga kay Lenny, hindi naniniwala sa survey kasi sabi, 2,400 lang ang sinurvey, ang laki-laki na nag-a-attend ng rally. So that confirms, may confirmation bias ang tinatawag no, na pag ito nakikita mo, naniniwala ka, mananalo, at yung iba, hindi ka naniniwala sa ano pang sinasabi ng iba.
Yeah.
So nagkakaroon ng, kaya hindi na nag-uusap yung dalawang kampo at nawawala yung source of truth. Wala isang one source of truth. Wala, tayo dati, ang media lang ang may kontrolado ng news. So nakikinig tayo sa media. Ngayon wala na. So si Nicole, kung siya isang makaleni, kung anong sinabi niya, pakikinggan ko siya kasi naniniwala ako kay Lenny or kay Bongbong, ganun din ang nangyayari. Yeah. So, lumalaki ng lumalaki at lumalayo ng lumalayo ang mga kampo-kampo.
Nagkakaroon ng divide talaga.
Yeah.
And how can that be fixed, Nicole? Is there a way to fix that?
Yeah, I think one positive development in this campaign season is the return of house-to-house campaigning. I think that is really an eye-opener to supporters of candidates because when you go door knocking, you realize, ang dami palang magkaiba yung iniisip kaysa sa akin. And so that's why the call of many candidates is to persuade people who are not like you and meet them face-to-face. And I think that is something that is particularly phenomenal in this campaign, na parang may counterattack with the algorithm na di harap-harapan tayo, let's see people who are not like us and realize that, oh my God, iba pala yung nakikita sa reality versus
But while that is good, it's such a tedious process. Ang haba nung prosesong pagdadaanan ng house to house kaysa lumabas ko sa TikTok o kaya sa Twitter or sa Instagram or sa YouTube.
And hindi rin siya automatic conversion. So for the past week, I spent time with ordinary urban poor communities in Tacloban. Some of them actually met people who have gone house to house. And it's not automatic that they believe in what the people campaigning were saying. Sometimes yung predispositions talaga sobrang lakas. Although marami rin namang iba na na-convert because they feel special, they feel appreciated na may kumausap din sa kanila in person.
Took the time to do this, nagpagod at kinita sila. Edwin, what about you?
Yung challenge talaga ng house to house, agree ako doon, nakalabas ka ng echo chamber mo. Pero ang problema ng house to house, ang initial problema doon, scalability. Diba? Can you scale it up that fast? Fortunately, talagang nag-all out yung mga volunteers. Sige, nag-ano sila. Talagang nag-all out sila, mag-house to house sila, spending their time. Ang kagandahan din, two things at work, no? Number one, summer ang walang pasok mga bata. Pangalawa, work from home. So, mas maraming taong nakakalabas, after you finish your work, diba? Whatever that work is, you're not bound by time anyway if you're working from home. So there were many people, volunteers, students, and working people who went out also. So nagkaroon ng scalability to that in that regard.
Okay, pag-usapan natin to. Social media, Edwin saying something about television and the commercials, obviously, binubuhos as long as you have the money dun sa commercial. Kasi it's maaalala ng tao, yung muka, yung kanta nung kandidato. So malaking tulong yon. But what about the kind of support or the backing? For example, the presidential candidates get sa local candidates. How do you, I guess, strike a balance, or what is probably more important or takes precedence? Would it be the support, let's say, of governors, congressmen, and mayors vis-a-vis social media? Edwin, go ahead.
Alam mo, baliktad ngayon. If you look at the case of Lenny, she started off with very, very few political endorsements because of the fact that she decided late. A lot of the politicians local ones have to make a decision. I have to run. I have to have a backer. So if you've not decided yet, I have to go with someone else. So that's why when Lenny started, there were very, very few politicians, and a lot of them were quietly pa. Nung lumaki yung declaration, nangangapa, tinan muna natin. And usually, politicians are survey yan eh. Tinan muna natin. But this time around, kahit na ayon sa survey, mababa siya, marami pa rin nag-endorse. For instance, NUP, the president of NUP, si PD Barzaga. Di ba? I mean, I think the party sinabi mag-endorse kay Bongbong, but you saw PD Barzaga there, and then you saw Mayor Jerry Treñas of Iloilo City all out na nag-ano. But by and large...
But on the flip side, you talk about governors, and yung League of Governors, sinasabi daw 80% or 90% are with BBM.
Conventionally naman talaga, we're going against convention this time around. Because conventionally, if you're leading in the surveys, politicians will go with you. But here's the thing. Based on our experience, command votes, and these are called command votes, no? You've got the market votes, yung nakaka-capture ng survey, yan eh. Yung boto na walang nag-uutos sa'yo, iboto si ganito. Yung kusang boto is called the market votes. Ang command votes, yung dala ng politiko, or utos ko yan, dalhin yan.
Susunod sila.
Ang conventional niya, mga 5% lang naman ang hatak nila eh. So kunyari, ito yung survey mo, ang command votes kasi you don't see that in the surveys eh. So you see that on the last day, assuming there's a command vote, but by and large, our experience, mga 5% lang siya, ang dagdag.
Command votes. Okay, Nicole, what about you?
Actually, I would affirm that. So I spent time with communities waiting for vote buying, for example. And then they start comparing magkano yung binibigay ng bawat kandidato. But they do it out of fun, na parang, oy, si councilor ganito, wala pang binigay. Oy, si mayor, bakit mas mababa yung this year than 3 years ago? But in the end, they really vote based on their conscience. Diba?
So tatanggapin nila, pero iboboto pa rin nila yung napupusuan nila.
Exactly.
Tatanggapin lang nila yung pera.
Iba yun ang cardinal sin formula.
And remember, even the vice president was criticized for that because she also made mention of that doon sa pagtanggap ng pera, hindi ba?
Because it's a recognition of the difficulties in life eh. Di ba? Parang tama sabi ni Nicole eh, bibigyan ka ng pera pero may konsyensya ka pa rin, tutulong ka. Di ba? Parang sabihin na natin, let's be honest with it, talagang hirap ang tao, lalo na sa pandemya. Eh, alam naman natin na that's the reason why ang turnout parati ng election, lalo na sa presidential. Eh, by the way, in every election, mataas ang turnout natin. Hindi tulad ng Amerika, pag midterms yan, ang baba. Dito sa Pilipinas, kahit na midterm yan or presidential, mataas ang turnout dahil may perang lumalabas.
Let's talk about surveys, Nicole. Pulse Asia has come out with a monthly survey, I believe, beginning January, no, Edwin? Since Jan, Feb, March, April. Yes. The last being, of course, still the front runner. Bongbong Marcos at 56% in April, unchanged from his March standing or rating of 56%. Compared to Leni Robredo in April at 23%, bumaba siya ng 1, which is, they say, part of the marginal error. 24 naman siya the month before. How does this come into play? Social media and surveys. I guess the question is, malaking tulong ba ang social media dito sa mga botante kaya't pinipili nila kung sino man yung kanilang kandidato?
Yeah, I think medyo mahirap yung surveys ngayon kasi towards May 9, hindi na weekly yung labas. Kaya hindi na-track yung improvement or decline ng ibang kandidato. But I also want to say na with the studies that I've seen so far, wala naman talagang bandwagon effect yung survey. Although I don't know if some people will contest that. Kasi if that's the case, dapat presidente na si Vice President Binay ngayon, di ba? Candidates use survey to basically inform their strategies, and it also informs citizens to whether they need to work hard in convincing other people to support their candidates. But I understand then na parang Google Trends is such
I'm gonna go there also later. But I want to stick to what you said, just to follow up. You're saying that hindi naiimpluwensyahan ang botante sa lumalabas sa mga survey?
Yes, and I think the reason why some camps emphasize na, panalo na kasi top na sa survey, it's part of the bigger narrative na pag natalo, ibig sabihin na daya, look at the surveys. And we can also say that for the Robredo campaign, look at Google Trends. We also have empirical basis to claim that we can also win these elections. So it's not really convincing people to go for the winning candidates. It's really more of establishing the narrative that if the outcomes are different from what the survey said closest to the elections, baka may dayaan.
But you're looking at such a big gap, Edwin, between Bongbong Marcos and Leni Robredo. I understand what Nicole is saying, but with 56 vis-a-vis 23, that's a huge gap, and you even have Pulse Asia saying this is unprecedented.
Well, totoo yun. Medyo malaki nga ang survey gap ni Bongbong at sa ni Leni. And, you know, for me, since I've relied on surveys as a former government official, I have no reason to doubt. Pero sabi rin naman nila Ronnie Holmes snapshot in time yung mga survey. No? And I've always said, the only survey that matters, and I think the only Google trend that should matter should be on the day itself.
Today.
Kasi forget about it, pagdating sa ngayon, look at the turnout, nobody could have predicted the turnout today. So will it have an effect? And by the way, tama si Nicole Pag nagkamali ang survey, pag nagkamali ang Google Trends, anong sasabihin? May reason sila. You know what's their excuse? Apart from sabihin na natin may dayaan, ang excuse nila from a very professional angle is, the people change their minds. Which is, walang bandwagon effect nga. But that's an excuse that they always say.
But what is ano ba yung natural sa botante? In terms of percentage, ilang porsyento sa botante, ang last minute, ganun pa? Pwede pang magpalit ng desisyon. Tinatawag na, you can call them the soft votes, right?
Yung sa akin, wala akong anecdotal basis. No? I will only rely on the service. Sa akin, nakita ko, nag-harden na So, nag-harden na. So, but I don't know kung totoong nag-harden. Kasi, tama nga sabi, pwedeng magbago, normally, anecdotally, di ba, pag ang tao, doon na lang ako, kunyari, I'm rooting for the third or fourth. Hindi ko na ito iboboto. Yung sa una na lang o yung sa pangalawa, yun na lang iboboto. But those are all anecdotal. So, it really depends on how convincing you are. But sa akin, wala na, whatever the scientific surveys that were done, well, let's see it today, in the survey today. Hindi rin alam, for instance, wala ako nakitang survey na nag-track ng expected turnout. All we knew was the youth was all out. I mean, anecdotally, the youth were all out sa eleksyon so sa kampanya. Sila ang nagtatrabaho, sila ang gumagalaw.
Just to follow up, I want to go to Nicole because I want to ask you something very important, of course, especially the youth vote now. But before I lose track of this, Pulse Asia has come out with this survey since January. Bongbong Marcos always led. Pulse Asia at some point was being called, or is still being called, False Asia, diba? By critics who do not believe however their scientific approach to the surveys. Being a government official in 2010, and prior to that, obviously, alam mo naman yung takbo nito, nagkamali na ho ba ang Pulse Asia?
Sa mga malayuan, honestly, wala. In 2010, malaki yung lumang si Noy kay Villar. Pero nanalo si Noy, pero hindi na nakuha ng survey. If I recall, pumangalawa si Erap, hindi si Villar. Pumangatlo si Villar. I may be wrong.
That's right.
Di ba?
Nicole remembers.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So, yung mga ganong klase, yung mga last minute. For instance, si Bongbong, the last survey of Pulse Asia, panalo si Bongbong Pero nag-iba rin yung tao, nakita yung...
you're talking about the vice presidency and then...
Sa presidency, wala talaga. I mean, sa presidency, wala.
You don't remember, Nicole, do you remember a time that Pulse Asia was incorrect?
Wait, how about the GMA thing? Because it was a close race. Miriam, FVR and Miriam. I don't remember kung ano ang survey doon, but that was close also.
Yeah.
Diba?
But that is indeed a snapshot in time, right?
Yes.
And if it's a tight race, you can't really predict what happens on the day itself. But I think they are able to track the general trends. Hindi naman yung precise average talaga. And I think for me as an academic, it's quite dangerous that we cast doubt on the integrity of credible polling bodies just because we don't like the results we are seeing. We know the credibility of the people behind it. I'm enjoying the debate of methods on social media, the social science and statisticians who are so nerdy about it. So yes, let's debate the method, pero to have the instinct to cast doubt on the integrity of credible polling firms, I think that's very dangerous.
So you believe in the integrity and credibility of Pulse Asia?
Absolutely.
All right, we need to take a very short break. We'll give you more updates on our complete coverage of this year's elections. Please stay with us. We bring you back our live in-depth coverage of the Filipino Votes 2022 after spending nearly 2 hours in queue. Vice President Leni Robredo finally cast her vote in Magarao, Camarines Sur before noon. The details from our senior correspondent, Anjo Alimario. Anjo, go ahead.
That's right, Pinky. Vice President Leni Robredo, the second highest official in the land, had to fall in line for almost 2 hours just to cast her vote in Magarao, Camarines Sur. No special treatment was given to her. Instead, she joined fellow voters who lined up in a brief interview with the media right after she voted. Robredo says she's happy that the campaign period is over, that she was given the opportunity to do everything without resorting to dirty tactics. She adds that what they have achieved during the campaign was so much more than expected. Now, on reports of malfunctioning vote counting machines and election-related violence, Robredo says it's worrisome. She points out the integrity of the elections shouldn't be tainted with these incidents. They've already put up a hotline to receive complaints as well as lawyers who are on standby. She also asked voters to report and document things that they see which are outside of the norm, at the same time appealing to authorities to show that they are on top of the situation. Now, right after voting, Robredo had lunch with her 3 daughters at a Pinalas eatery before proceeding to Amang Hilulid Chapel to pray. She also went there when she made the life-changing decision to run for president.
Anjo, balikan ko lang, no? Di ba si Vice President Robredo, nagpalit siya ng kanyang pagbobotohan, yung kanyang residency?
That's right. She transferred from Naga to Magarao. That's why her 2 other daughters, Aika and Trisha, pumoto sila sa Naga muna before joining their mom sa Magarao. So, yung bahay nila ngayon nasa Magarao.
Yung bahay nila nasa Magarao. Kaya naalala ko, Anjo, hindi ba, nung nag-change siya ng residency, dyan lumabas yung bali-balita o spekulasyon na baka tumakbo siyang gobernador, hindi ba?
Exactly. The same day that she went here, in-announce ng ibang bayan that they would be endorsing Robredo. Namuwi siya sa Camarines Sur, particularly in Naga, to change her yung residence niya from Naga to Magarao. And she also, coincidentally, she also went to Amang Hilulid Chapel that time to seek that intervention, to seek guidance, para to make that ultimate decision whether she would be running for the highest post or not.
Alam mo ba, Anjo, kung gaano kalayo yan? From Naga?
From Naga? Yeah, it's a 20-minute drive from Naga to Magarao. Depending on the traffic, of course. Kanina madaling araw, makuha natin mga 17 minutes. But on a normal day, mga 20 to 25 minutes yung layo.
Malapit-lapit din pala. Okay. Maraming salamat, Anjo Alemani, reporting to us from Camarines Sur. We're still making the rounds in the Visayas. Our stringer Carla Doromal is covering the elections in Aklan. Carla, anong latest dyan?
Pinky, by this time, the number of voters showing up at 694 clustered precincts in Aklan continue to increase in most areas. Earlier today, the Aklan Electric Cooperative Substation reported power interruptions in 5 towns, particularly in Washington, Banga, Balete, Lezo, and Libacao, mostly due to transient fault. Power interruptions, however, lasted for only 10 to 15 minutes. It barely disrupted the operations of affected precincts. Meanwhile, some polling precincts here have encountered issues with vote counting machines in the first few hours. Fortunately, they were immediately resolved by the electoral boards. Aside from classrooms, Comelec Aklan also opened as polling places, multi-purpose pavements, daycare centers, barangay halls, barangay health centers, cultural and sports centers, covered court, public stage, and evacuation center. Earlier this noon, gubernatorial candidate Ibahay Mayor Jose Enrique Miraflores cast his vote at Ibahay Central School. Miraflores, who is in his 30s, is the son of the outgoing Aklan Governor Florencio Miraflores, who is retiring undefeated. The young Miraflores is up against the three-termer Calibo Town Mayor William La Chica and the mechanical engineer Willie Tolentino. The gubernatorial race here is the battle between a veteran and two newcomers. Back to you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot, Carla Doromal, reporting live or reporting to us from Aklan. Let's check the situation in Surigao City. Bonifacio Binayon of RPN DXKS Surigao will give us the latest from there. Bonifacio, kamusta ang takbo ng botohan dyan?
Yes, Pinky, good afternoon. As of this moment, right here in Surigao City, Central Elementary School, Barangay Top, Surigao City, a lot of voters still in their long queue, quietly awaiting for their shot to execute their votes. This polling place has only one clustered precinct with 746 total number of registered voters, and it was reported its BCM incurred technical problem at around 11:20 o'clock this morning. Accordingly, started in misreading until it resulted to paper jam. Thus, voters consequently stuck then in the place, and most of the old age voters were silently grumbling as the technical people trying to fix the problem. One of the affected voters was the incumbent congressman, the re-electionist for representative the 2nd Legislative District of Surigao del Norte, Robert H. Barbers, who was about to cast his votes during that time. However, after 30 minutes, the flow was effectively fixed up and the voting process smoothly continued. Pinky, so far, there are 3 BCMs throughout mainland Surigao City were reportedly having its faults, but it was immediately resolved and restored its normal operation. The overall situation right here, right now in Surigao City is calm and generally peaceful. That's it for now, Pinky. Report in Philippines, Bonifacio Binayon, Surigao City.
Thank you so much, Bonifacio Binayon of RPN DXKS Surigao. Let's now speak to PNP spokesperson Jean Fajardo on the assessment of security and conduct of the elections. Colonel, magandang hapon po sa inyo.
Magandang hapon, Ma'am Pinky.
Okay, ano hong binabantayan yung mga areas ngayon?
Sa ngayon, ma'am, patuloy nating binabantayan yung mga areas na nandoon nga po sa tinatawag nating areas of great concern, yung tinatawag nating areas under red category, 117 po yan. And of course, yung pong 28 areas na napasa ilalim po sa COMELEC control.
Meron pong ilang mga video, no? Of course, we haven't really verified them. So, I'm really not at liberty to, well, number one, show it because kailangan po magpaalam. Ano ho yung nakikita ninyo? Meron ho ba kayong mga nakikitang problema sa Cotabato, Lanao del Sur? Meron ho bang nakarating sa inyo na kaguluhan?
So far, ma'am, we recorded the explosion incidents in the areas of Datu Unsay, Sharif Agwak, and Datu Piang, all of Maguindanao province, ma'am.
Ano po nangyari doon sa mga lugar na yon?
Meron pong sumabog po na isang 40mm M203 dyan po sa area ng Datu Unsay, malapit po sa Municipal Hall. 4 po yung naitala nating pagsabog dyan at meron po tayong naitalang mga na-injured na kababayan natin dyan, although hindi naman po critical. Nakalabas din po sila after getting medical attention doon po sa pinakamalapit na hospital. The same explosion incidents were also recorded, ma'am, dyan sa Sharif Agwak. Naghagis po ng granada. Luckily, ma'am, wala namang pong casualty doon. And yung explosion po dyan sa Datu Piang National High School po ay may 6 po tayong injured person po dyan. Habang sila po ay nag-aantay ng kanilang turn para po bumoto ay bigla na lang pong may sumabog at tinamaan po sila ng shrapnel. But they are in stable condition na po as we speak, ma'am.
And any information on who could have been behind all these?
Right now, ma'am, nagkakandak po ng hot pursuit operation po yung pinagsanib na pwersa po ng PNP and AFP. May isa po silang grupong tinututukan, although I'm not at liberty to reveal it so as not to preempt po yung ongoing hot pursuit operation po ng ating security forces dyan po sa probinsya po ng Maguindanao.
Mm-hmm. Ma'am, dito po sa Sultan Kudarat, may balita ho kayo dyan, nakaguluhan din?
So far, ma'am, we are still waiting for the official report except doon sa sinasabi ko, ma'am, na nabanggit mo explosion kanina. We also recorded shooting incident this morning dyan po sa Buluan, the same in Maguindanao also, ma'am. May 3 po tayong naitalang patay po dyan na mga miyembro po ng mga barangay police auxiliary team at pagkasugat po ng isang katao din.
Meron po kaming report kanina na meron daw palang konsehal na napatay, incumbent councilor na pinatay on the eve of the elections by 3 individuals at nakatakas po. Meron ho ba kayong alam na information regarding this?
We are still trying to confirm the said report, Mama Pinky, but so far, ito pong mga insidente po ang pumasok na po sa election monitoring system po ng National Headquarters at kasabay pa po niyan yung iba pang mga report na pumapasok maging doon sa ibang lugar po, ma'am, maliban po dito sa nabanggit po mga insidente.
How about Marawi?
Sa Marawi, ma'am, so far, we have not received any report. Kanina, ma'am, may pumasok around 6:30 a.m. May strapping incident po na naitala dyan po sa Sumisip, Basilan. Mayroon pong unidentified suspect na pinaputukan po yung elementary school dyan. But based po sa report po ng provincial director natin dyan sa Basilan at sa Maguindanao, that despite itong mga na-record po nating insidente ngayong umaga ay nagtuloy-tuloy pa rin po yung butuhan sa lugar na yan at nagdagdag na po tayo, Ma'am Pinky, ng tauhan po ng Special Action Force pati po ng Philippine Army para masiguro po na hindi na po mag-i-escalate yung situation po dyan sa mga areas na yan.
Colonel, meron ho bang mga lugar na hindi po natuloy ang botohan?
Sa mga na-receive po nating report so far, Ma'am Pinky, hindi natuloy kundi na-delay po yung conduct po ng election because of some reported defective po na mga vote counting machines po. At yun po ang inaalalayan ngayon ng PNP. Nagpadala na po ng mga replacement BCM po yung COMELEC at yun po yung inesportan ng ating mga kapulisan dyan, katuwang po yung service provider to ensure na makakating po doon sa mga respective polling centers po yung mga kapalit po ng mga BCM para magtuloy-tuloy po yung botohan sa mga areas po na yun.
Pero wala po kayong natatanggap na report na hindi po natuloy ang botohan so far?
So far, ma'am, wala po tayong nare-receive na report na wala pong hindi natuloy yung mga botohan, particularly dito sa mga areas of concern na ating tinututukan, ma'am.
Okay, PNP spokesperson, Police Colonel Jean Franco. Ma'am, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. And before we move on, let's check on some comments online. Tinanong po namin ang netizens, sino man ang manalo, ano ang pangarap mo para sa sambayanang Pilipino? Makakasama natin si Menchu Makapagal. Menchu, anong sagot ng mga netizens?
Alright, Pinky, ang daming mga komento na pumasok sa lahat ng ating mga social media accounts. Unahin muna natin itong sa Facebook mula kay Joe Ranyola. Ang sinasabi niya, pangarap daw niya para sa sambayanang Pilipino yung quality education, yung kahit daw public school, competitive ang facilities at well-trained ang teachers. Pati rin daw quality healthcare na wala nang mahihirapang makakuha ng kama sa ospital. So yan ang ating first comment mula sa Facebook. Ito naman galing kay Daniel Del Rosario. Hangad naman niya yung sapat na trabaho dito sa Pilipinas para naman daw yung mga Pilipino magtatrabaho sa ibang bansa, mag-a-abroad lang dahil gusto nila at hindi dahil sa matinding pangangailangan. From Facebook, let's move over to Twitter. This one coming in from Philly Anaconda or Ann. Pagtaas naman ng daily minimum wage ang hiling, sabi niya, wish ko lang ay mas lumiit ang living in poverty and below poverty. Sino raw ba ang may kayang mabuhay sa halagang higit kumulang 500 pesos lang sa isang araw? Another comment from Twitter. This one from Crew Forever. Ang sinasabi niya, pangarap niya na makaahon sa kahirapan ang mga Pilipino at maging mulat sa pananamantala ng mga mapang-abusong mga politiko. Now from Twitter, let's move on over to our Instagram pages. Zone 28, sino man daw ang manalo, sana gumawa ng paraan o i-push ang pagbaba ng presyo ng bilihin dahil napakamahal daw ng cost of living sa bansa kumpara sa mga nakaraang taon. At si IG user Aya Mina, safer place to live in. Yung kanyang gusto, yung confident, yung pangarap niya para sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Yung confident na raw, lumakad-lakad sa labas na hindi natatakot, better transportation, at syempre, quality of life. At yan ang komento ng ating mga netizens. Join our online conversations using the hashtag #TheFilipinoVotes. Back to you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot, Manchu. Our Melissa Lopez joins us from the Philippine International Convention Center, or PICC, for the COMELEC's canvassing of votes. Melissa, what's happening there now?
Pinky, right now we are seeing the arrival of delegates coming from various groups. So we have representatives of parties, of political parties and candidates, as well as international observers, mostly coming from the diplomatic corps. Now, the rules of the COMELEC state that at 3 p.m. today, that was a few moments ago, the 7-member COMELEC and BAC should have already convened as the National Board of Canvassers. Now we're seeing last-minute preparations behind me. Earlier, just before we went to air, a chorale was serenading the guests as everyone is settling down. It's gonna be a long wait until after the polls close at 7 p.m. since the National Board of Canvassers still has to wait for the certificates of canvass coming from local boards before they can actually proceed with the official counting of votes, and eventually they expect in a week's time to be able to declare the winners for the Senate and the party list race. Pinky.
Mel, so they are there as mandated, no? Sabi mo nga at 3 p.m. Let's go back to that for siguro para maliwanagan tayong lahat. So what's going to happen, Mel, ay mamaya polls will close at 7 p.m., hindi ba? Ano ang mangyayari dyan sa PICC? Kasi magbibilang na ba sila? I know you explained that a while ago, pero ulitin lang natin para, kasi meron tayong PPCRV at sila nasa UST. At meron tayong COMELEC na nandyan sa PICC. Kwento mo ulit, after 7 p.m., pag sara ng mga presinto, anong mangyayari dyan?
Tama, Pinky. So the Board of Canvassers will actually convene this afternoon, but we expect na hindi muna sila makakita ng masyadong aksyon dito dahil hihintayin kasi natin na pumasok lahat ng isa-isa, pa isa-isa yan, yung certificates of canvass, na yun kasi yung formal na pagbabasihan ng official tally para magdeklara ng mga winning candidates sa 2022 elections. So ang mangyayari kasi dyan, magbibilang ang mga makina sa presinto, and then that will be transmitted through the servers of COMELEC. Una sa local, so city and municipal level, and then to the provincial level. And then from there, dyan yan pupunta dito sa national level. So medyo mas matagal. Although yung sa PPCRV, mabilis yon and parehas na server yon. But there is a specific process that needs to be followed by the National Board of Canvassers, that's the COMELEC and BAC, before they can actually declare the winner. So more or less, malalaman natin sino yung leading. Pero it's the COMELEC which has the authority to declare the Senate and party list race winners. Sa Congress naman, they would be the ones with the authority to declare who is the winning presidential and vice presidential candidate. Pinky.
Okay, maraming salamat, Melissa Lopez, for that. All right, let's go to Mindanao. Cecil Aboy of RPN DXXX Zamboanga will give us an update. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. 333,750 out of the total 445,000 total registered voters in Zamboanga City are expected to cast their votes in today's synchronized local and national elections. This was the assessment or actually made with the Commission on Elections in this city. COMELEC said the city has a total number of 638 precincts. As early as 6 in the morning, Sambugueños were already lining up in the different polling places, braving heavy rains just to exercise their right of suffrage. As of this reporting, the rain has stopped, but persistent problems with the COMELEC system still persist. Reports of names not found in the voters' list, unable to vote despite complete documents, defective VCMs were just among the complaints heard by some voters. The conduct of the election still considered generally peaceful and orderly as what the police and military considers, as there were no reports of untoward incident that could ruin the conduct of the elections. Although there was a reported case of shooting, but police investigators are still digging deeper into the case to determine whether the case is a personal grudge or election-related, but no one was reportedly injured during the incident. The local COMELEC here has filed a written complaint against a reporter and the outfit for election violation. According to COMELEC Register Attorney Stephen Roy Cañete, the reporter took a picture of a shaded ballot and posted the same on the FB page of the media outfit. The outfit has taken down the post after receiving the written warning from the COMELEC. As voters troop to polling places, the city government, through the City Health Office, continues its vaccination today with one vaccination site open, catering to walk-in adults 18 years and above for first, second, and booster doses. The same vaccination site caters to 5 to 11 years old for first and second doses. The city has reported 92% fully vaccinated individual as of May 4, 2022, a total of 1,336,218 doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered. Of the total doses, 675,194 are first dose, while 661,024 are second dose. Reporting for CNN Philippines, Cecil Aboy, RPN, Bichupolik, Zamboanga City.
Cecil Aboy of RPN DXXX Zamboanga, and I'm going to speak again to sociologist Nicole Curato and former presidential spokesperson and political consultant Edwin Lacerda. We still have a lot to talk about. So, Nicole wanted to talk about the youth vote. What is, ano bang bracket ng youth vote? But we all, I just want to say this now, that the 18 to 19 voters for this election numbers almost 2.8 million. Madami sila. Ano bang youth vote?
Right. Well, if we look at Pulse Asia, looking at 18 years old to 24. And then if we want to be a bit more generous, 25 to 44. And I think what's surprising based on the Pulse Asia data is that with the category of 18 to 24s, 71% are voting for Bongbong Marcos Jr. Of course, for some people, this raises alarm bells. But for other people, they would probably contest this. Because if we think about what the youth are concerned with, what issues they care about, it's very diverse, right? Hindi naman isang category lang yung youth na pag sinabing youth, education lang yung paki nila. I mean, it's more diverse. Some care about climate change, some care about wages, some care about COVID. So mahirap siyang isipin as just a single category. But I think what's particularly different with the 18 to 24 bracket right now is these are digital natives. This is a generation that does not know a world with no Facebook. And I think that is what's peculiar about that generation.
And it's peculiar. Is it good or is it disadvantageous? Is it advantageous or disadvantageous?
I think it's a mix of both. Some would say, for example, that this generation grew up in the echo chamber generation, right? So this is the generation na nakuha nilang information nila from micro-targeted information that they get on Facebook and now on TikTok. But again, like what I said a while ago, this is also a self-aware generation. Hindi lang sila nagko-consume ng information. Kaya rin nilang mag-produce ng information when they create content. So I think before we panic na bakit ganito mag-isip yung mga kabataan ngayon, bakit sobra silang biased for a particular candidate, hindi ba dapat mas diverse yung preferences nila? I think the point there is we also need to unpack the kinds of issues that young people carry. Parang hindi pa masyadong clear what they represent.
So ulitin natin yun, Edwin. 18 to 24 years old, numbers about 11 million. Tama na, Nicole?
We have to check that.
Yeah, so here, I have it. This is from the COMELEC election records. 18 to 19 is, I'll round it off, 2.8 million. 20 to 24 is 8.6 million. So that's 2.8 plus 8.6. That's almost 12. If I'm not mistaken, 11.6 maybe million. Malaki to na mga botante. Yung first-time voters ba, Edwin, is that a lot at 2.8 million? Historically?
Kasi you have to look at it every year kasi nagre-register ka. Ganito yan eh. If you're, let's say you're 18 years old, 2003, maybe you're 19 or 19 ka or 18 or 17, basta ganon. Every year kasi yan, at a given year, you have a population count. And every year, if you know the birth rate, you can more or less project. Yeah. Let's say, in 2003, let's say we have 80 million. So you have a 2% population birth rate. So you can count that year 1.6. So kung 2% yan, 1.6, 1.6, so may 4.8 ka every 3 years na pumapasok. Now, that's assuming everybody will register. The thing that even COMELEC admits na parang ang laki nang nag-register ng youth vote ngayon. Kasi nga siguro nga naging existential ang tingin nila dito sa election na to eh.
Actually, yun yung tanong ko eh, because I wanted to know if this was a big number or I'm comparing it to where there really just a lot of first-time voters who went out and registered. That's the comparison I wanted to make when I was asking you, malaki ba tong 2.8 million?
If you recall, ang sabi ng COMELEC, malaki eh. I mean, they're the repository of all this information. So mukhang, if I remember, they mentioned na malaki ang nag-register ng youth vote. But also, marami rin nag-register first time na hindi na youth din. Or at least nag-renew ng kanilang registration. Yeah. Maraming ganun eh.
Inactivate nila ulit.
Inactivate nila ulit because nga, ibang, after 6 years 2 years of pandemic, talagang parang pagod na sila. They want, ito yung tinatawag na change, di ba? Gusto namin ng pagbabago kasi pagod na kami sa pandemya, pagod na kami sa hirap ng buhay. So ito yung pumapasok na we need to have a change.
But also very telling here, Nicole and Edwin, it's the 60 and above. Di ba ang senior citizen, 60? Tama ba? 60 and above, no? Not 65. 60 and above. 65 pala retirement age. So 60 and above, registered voters is at 10 million. 10.2 million, which represents about 16% of votes. Malaki yan. I'll go to the next one in terms of yung pinakamaraming botante. 60 and above is 10 million. 25 to 29 is 8.6 million voters. Ano bang mindset, Nicole and Edwin, ng mga 60 and above? I mean, in terms of voting, obviously awareness, you're obviously older, and comparing that to what? First-time voter of about 2.8 million. Nicole, go ahead. Tell us the profile. Or is that not your, meet the millennials?
I'm gonna say, malapit naman na maging senior yung mga millennials. I mean, there are aging millennials as well, like myself. But correct me if I'm wrong. But the understanding is that voting in the Philippines is not really determined by the demographic criteria of age. It's often determined by baluarte. People vote for candidates from the same region. And in the case of the 2022 election, one study actually revealed that the view of Marcos Sr. is predictive of voting behavior, meaning how people perceive the late dictator is predictive of how they will vote in this election across the board yan. So I think while it's also important to profile the boomers and the Gen Zs and millennials as voters, I think I also recognize na maraming indicators for voting preferences are medyo across the board siya.
Edwin, what about
you? If you remember also, tama rin yun. Pag nabasa mo yung sa Pulse Asia survey, it's a 60 and above na medyo mas anti-bongbong. Because pinagdaanan yung panahon na yun. Martial law. So, although malaki pa rin yung boto kay Bongbong, pero ito yung predominantly na mas lamang ang mga anti-Bongbong. Because dumaan sila sa martial law. Kaya yung mga bata ngayon, it's one generation apart. Diba? They grew up in social media, like what Nicole said. So talagang, at that time, like I was telling you before, 2010, nung nasa gobyerno kami, nakita na namin yung rehabilitation, restoration ni Marcos sa YouTube. Tahimik. It's so quiet. Below the radar, but they were putting out Marcos restoration. And you know, it was Manolo Quezon who told me, did you see this? Who's gonna believe that? Ako, syempre, I went through martial law, we went through EDSA. So my own perception was, nobody's gonna believe that. How wrong was I to realize that the younger ones who have no concept of martial law, who had never been exposed to the Marcos difficult years, had a different notion of Marcos.
Let's talk about, before we forget, Google Trends. Please explain this to us. So, it was said that Google Trends actually predicted leadership in Southeast Asian countries such as Malaysia, Singapore, and the Philippines. So, if I still have my numbers right, Google Trends, you have a 57% Lenny and a 23% Bongbong Marcos. My question is, ano ho ba talaga ang value ng Google Trends compared to, I'll just go straight to the point, a survey like Pulse Asia?
Yung kasi sa survey, diretso ang tanong, sino iboboto mo? Ganun kasimple yun, di ba? You're given a questionnaire, di ba ang style ngayon ng Pulse Asia, the last survey they had, it's like a ballot na ballot style form na. You're given the ballot, you fill out who you prefer to be the president and all the other officials. So that's very clear. It's a direct query on who's your preference. On Google Trends, it's really assuming it's a search, its search is basically you want to know who this fellow is. Lenny Robredo, Bongbong Marcos, Isko Moreno. So you search. So my understanding, it aggregates all the search. So it aggregates all the searches for Lenny, but searches in and of itself are sentiment agnostic. So whatever, for instance, if you type Lenny Robredo, you don't know what's going to come out.
You don't know if it's for Lenny or against Lenny.
Or all of them will come out.
Yeah.
Diba? So we don't know, and there's really nothing there to say that it is for or against. But some people would a particular firm would rate, for instance, for instance, Facebook, engagement as preference. If you, let's say, you nag-like ka, kinlik mo yung natatawa, yung smile, that's viewed as preference. Conversion na yan.
Yeah.
Conversion na yan. So it depends on the rules that you provide for the AI. And then the AI will just aggregate it in accordance to the rules that the algorithm that you've crafted. So yung methodology na is based on the AI rules that you craft. Pag ang Google search naman talaga, it's very aggregated yan. It's anonymized. It's big data. It doesn't distinguish a unique user. Let's say if Nicole can search
Nicole can search 1,000 times.
1,000 times, it will be aggregated. It is no respecter of how many times.
Exactly.
It is no respecter
Nicole
of
Corato's not just one.
Yes.
It wasn't just one search of one Nicole Corato. It's 1,000 searches of the same Nicole.
I tried to look for, let's say, can we go granular? Can we do a deep dive? For instance, if someone was searching, can we go province? Yes. Can we go region, province? Yes. And I asked, can we go a street level? Hindi kaya. Hindi kaya yung... Because sa street level, let's say sa Manila, kung maghahanap ang isang tao na galing Tondo, alam mo ang social class nito. Kasi ang binabangga mo naman sa survey, meron sang ABCDE. So more or less, alam natin kung bakit ganito ang distinction. So sa Google, wala eh.
What about you, Nicole?
I will
Help us understand
this.
this.
I will just affirm what was mentioned. Google Trends actually reflect what people are interested in, but we don't know the sentiment associated to that interest. But I'm also happy to be proven wrong, just to see how it affects, or not really affects, but how it reflects the outcome of the election. I think my partiality here is to blend survey data with Google Trends and see how they speak to each other. Some people tried to attempt that, but these are still very preliminary studies. So
It's too new, to be even able to do that, because there are some people who believe that because Google Trends is saying this is the predominantly more accurate siguro data compared to Pulse Asia.
Yeah.
To that you say, let's be direct, to that you say that's wrong, Edwin?
I've never viewed, even Google Trends in their FAQ say that they're not a pollcaster. So that's where I'm looking at it. I have basically, I've never used Google Trends as a predictor of votes. The other thing, by the way, but while Google Trends and surveys are being used in other countries, this is the only country na ang layo, iba ang results.
Okay.
Lahat consistent sila, aligned sila. Pero dito, baliktad. So, yun ang magandang tingnan. Bakit?
Okay, I just have one last question. We only have a minute left. Nicole, just siguro final words, how important this election is and what we should do after whoever it is wins.
So I always say in my interviews that it's not an overstatement to say that whoever will win the presidency is the person who will decide who lives or who dies in this country. This president will decide if Tokhang will continue. This president will decide our climate policy. This person will decide how we respond to disasters and how we respond to COVID. So literally, this person will decide who lives and who dies. And this is why it's the most consequential election, I think, in my lifetime.
Edwin.
I think itong election na ito, nabuhay yung civic-mindedness ng mga mamamayan. Naging mas buhay, naging mas passionate, mas naging aware sila. Siguro dapat ipagpatuloy ito because we need to let the people always speak truth to power, not just media. But kung may mali, dapat punahin ng taong bayan. Kung tama, purihin. Dapat kailangan aktibo tayo sa political involvement natin.
All right. Thank you so much. Excuse me, for joining us, political consultant, former presidential spokesperson, Edwin Lacerda, and of course, you're our resident, our sociologist, Nicole Curato. Thank you, Nicole. So good to see you again, and Edwin also, very good to see you. We'll give you more updates on our complete coverage of this year's elections at 4 p.m. Stay with CNN Philippines, news you can trust.
Filipinos get a chance to chart their future by electing leaders to more than 18,000 positions, including the president. The Filipino Votes on this big day. More than 65 million voters making their voices heard by one shade on the ballot and making a stand for a better life emerging from the health and economic crisis and against corruption, crime, illegal drugs, and many more. On this day that will go down in history, the future of the country is at stake. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022.
Filipino voters continue to troop to polling places today. Up for grabs are the presidency, vice presidency, 12 Senate seats, 316 House seats, including 63 party lists and about 18,000 local positions. Thousands of police and military personnel have been deployed to ensure peaceful and organized elections. Our news teams are in full force covering the candidates and the electoral process. Our AC Nichols is in PPCRV's command center in UST Manila. Senior correspondent Anjo Alimario is in Camarines Sur for Lenny Robredo. Melissa Lopez stands by at the PICC while George Cahiles is monitoring election activities in Cavite. We also have Tristan Nodalo in Quezon City. Our Amer Santos is also in UST Manila. Rex Remitio will give updates from the Uniteam campaign in Mandaluyong. Paulo Barcelon is in Manila for Isko Moreno. Our senior correspondent, David Santos, is in Davao to cover the Duterte family. In Cebu, we have Caroline Bonquin. In Sarangani, Zian Arcangel. In Rizal Province, Chrissy de Matulac is covering Leody de Guzman. Stanley Gajete is in Manila. Senior correspondent Lois Calderon in Ilocos Norte to cover Bongbong Marcos's family, and Paige Javier in Laguna. Presidential candidate Senator Ping Lacson voted today in his hometown in Cavite. George Cahiles joins us from there. George, what do you have for us?
Well, Pinky, here at Bayan Luma 1 Elementary School, the number of voters here have gone down by lunchtime as compared to the number of people here this morning. And also, earlier there was also some commotion in one of the precincts here among voters and members of the Board of Election Inspectors. In this precinct located on the second floor, the voting was temporarily stopped for around 30 minutes when the BEI chairman accompanied at least 4 PWD voters in one of the precincts at the ground floor. Some irate voters are demanding that they should be allowed inside to shade their ballots so that the process will be faster. Now, Cavite Provincial Board of Canvasser Chairman, Attorney Joseph Inaye, says they are projecting that the voter turnout in the province will reach around 80%, and that's how interested and invested Caviteños are in these elections, he said. So far, they have received dozens of issues concerning the vote counting machines, but they were immediately fixed. Only 5 were found defective and were replaced immediately. Back to you.
George Cahiles reporting to us from Cavite. From Luzon, let's go to the Visayas. Our stringer Bridget Dejon is reporting live from Ormoc, Leyte. Bridget, what do you have for us?
Yes, Pinky, good afternoon. So Ormoc City Mayor Richard Gomez, along with wife, Congresswoman Lucy Torres Gomez, and daughter Juliana Gomez, have casted their vote today, 3:15 p.m. here at Canajing Elementary School, Ormoc City. So we have witnessed the politicians went directly to their respective precincts, 0084A and 0084B. After they voted, media representatives had a small interview for both running candidates before leaving the location. So here in the area, Pinky, volunteers and watchers are very organized with their voting procedure. While voters wait for the long queue, the schools offer chairs for them to sit while they wait outside of the precincts where they will be voting. It's a peaceful yet organized procedure here and no reported incidents so far. Still, however, following the health protocols like social distancing and wearing of masks and temperature check upon arriving at the area. Meanwhile, opposing candidate and running mayor Engineer Ondo Codilla have already casted his vote along with his family earlier this morning around 10 a.m. at Cogon Central School, while former COMELEC Commissioner Attorney Goyo Larrazabal, who is battling against a spot in Congress with Mayor Richard Gomez, have voted early this morning at 7 a.m. in Ormoc City Central School. 2,000 plus voters are expected to vote in the area, and the voting ends at 7 p.m. tonight. Further, Commission on Election will start counting the votes at 8 p.m. tonight. Updates will follow.
Thanks a lot, Stringer. Bridget Dejon there reporting. Let's now go to Davao. We have the latest on the elections there from Stringer Pearl Gahonera. Pearl.
Pinky, the Davao City Police Office recorded 0 election-related incident in the city halfway through the election day. DCPO Director Police Colonel Roberto Lupas said that the atmosphere in Davao City is generally peaceful as the entire forces of the city police were fully utilized to ensure the safe conduct of the election. At least 2,100 police personnel were deployed in the entire city to maintain peace and order and to secure the ballots as well. Meanwhile, as the Davao region was greeted with heavy rainfalls on Monday morning, some parts of the municipality of Compostela and Moncayo in Davao de Oro experienced landslide and flooding. In Barangay Babag in Moncayo, Davao de Oro, residents crossed the knee-level flood on their way to their crawling precincts as the Agusan River located beside the Babag main road overflowed. Despite the heavy current, voters crossed the road carrying their motorcycles just to exercise their right to vote. In Compostela, Davao de Oro, one died while another was reportedly injured after the landslide incident in Barangay Ngan, municipality of Compostela. The casualty was identified as Ronela Magbasa. She was with her husband Norberto when the incident took place. Norberto sustained injuries and is currently undergoing immediate treatment. In general, the conduct of election in Davao de Oro remains peaceful as no election-related incident was recorded. Reporting for CNN Philippines, Pearl Gahonera, Davao de Oro.
Thanks a lot, Pearl Gahonera. The Ateneo School of Government says areas where political dynasties thrive, often suffer from underdevelopment and poverty. The school's dean, Ronald Mendoza, explains political dynasties are where there are several family members holding government positions at the same time, lead to weaker checks and balances, corruption, and even violence. Mendoza says that based on the 2019 national elections, data show that 80% of governors, 67% of congressmen, and 53% of mayors are from fat dynasties. Among the provinces, Maguindanao had the most officials belonging to a dynasty, eating up more than 50% of political posts. He urges the voting public to choose the most capable and credible candidates who will serve the country. And joining us now via Zoom is the University of the Philippines College of Public Administration and Governance, Professor Reginald Ugadan. Professor Ugadan, it's good to have you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for this opportunity.
Okay, let's just first talk about your assessment on the conduct of today's election.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's too early for us to say or to give an evaluation of the current election. But, I would like to say, of course, that this election is a historic election for our new voters. It's a historic election because, we will be electing a new president or a new set of national officials that will be facing or that will be tackling the current and future challenges of the country, as well as I can say that this election will also put to test our current automated election system. I would like to point out also that I was monitoring since this morning the conduct of the election. And if, as an academic, I would say, of course, the evaluation will always look into different indicators. And one of the indicators there that could possibly be should be checked is into the participation. Right? The participation, as I can see here, just like the previous elections, on the AES, we still encounter issues on the VCM, a defective or not working. Machines for or SD cards that are not working well. I think this is something that we have to look at. That may possibly again put the AES or our election the question, of course, on the integrity of the election. One thing that I would like also to point out, maybe as early as now, is that the COMELEC, of course, I would like to commend them for this preparation. But as you can see it now, there are long lines out in the precinct, in the polling places. People are having their lines there for almost 2 hours. Some also have reached 4 hours, right, on those lines. But of course, now after having those lines, you can just cast your votes. But of course, those are some of the indicators that we are looking at on trying to assess. But also there are other indicators that maybe after the election we could possibly give more detailed and also if I may say, an intelligent assessment of the election.
Right. Everything, Professor, right now is initial. And yung pong sinasabi ninyo is what we are seeing. There are areas that don't seem to have problems, yet meron pong mga lugar na mahaba yung linya, 2 hours bago makaboto. Meron pong nagagalit, naiinis dahil hindi gumagana yung voting counting machines after it being tested and sealed prior to today's election, di ho ba? But although everything is very initial, right now, the COMELEC seems to say that it's a small percentage of, for example, VCMs, voting counting machines or vote counting machines bogging down compared to the number in totality, itong mga vote counting machines at about 106,000.
Yeah, Yeah, maybe we can or COMELEC can argue on that. No, ilan lang naman itong mga issues, no. But we've been monitoring since this morning that there's almost 2,000 VCMs already, effective VCMs that are yet to, of course, to address. There's also a defective VCM that's 6:30, as early as 6:30 in the morning. Marami ng tao, and after that, there's already, they found out that it's really defective, but it was not resolved until 10 o'clock in the morning. So that's really something that COMELEC have to look at after this election. Pinky, I would like also to point out one thing that maybe that could possibly be looked at, or a factor, an indicator that we have to look at in this election, is the total or the overall integrity of the election. Of course, we're not saying that it's a problematic election, but we are still hearing issues of vote buying. It's a very old issue already in our election system. Even in an AES or an automated election system, we've been hearing a lot of issues like this vote buying. Even of course garapalan talaga na ginagawa yung napagbibigay ng pera.
Professor, would you say that how would you assess how COMELEC is dealing with these alleged vote buying issues? Are they aggressive enough?
For me, I see it. Of course, the COMELEC was able to set up a reporting system, but I think they're not aggressive enough. If I may say, they're not aggressive enough to really bring these people or these vote buyers. Either, of course, either you are a politician or you are an ordinary citizen that's really engaging into that legal activity that may put the election, the integrity or the credibility of the election in question. You can go back to 2019 elections, right? There are issues of vote buying. I mean, questions that could possibly give us a point of questioning, right, the integrity of the election. But there are no more. I mean, less cases still are filed in court, or even, of course, the people that would like really to file cases still, yung takot pa rin, na nasa kanila pa rin yung takot ng pagbabalita or to stand in court. I know, of course, COMELEC is really into that someone or somebody should really stand in court and should really play as a witness to that kind of activity.
Okay, let's talk about other issues. I want to get your thoughts on the maybe month and the weeks leading up to today in terms of the strategy of presidential and vice presidential candidates. For example, I had Edwin Nasherda and Nicole Curato a while ago, and they were saying one thing that was very prominent right now is in the advent of social media and, of course, ads on television, nabuhay daw ulit yung tinatawag na house-to-house campaigning.
I think this is one thing na pwede natin tignan sa election na ito. Kakaiba, if I may, it's really unique, and it's really something that we can always go back to look at what might be the future of elections in the country. People are really aware now. I mean, the citizen engagement or citizen participation in this election, if I may say, is very high. I think they are really betting to a candidate that they really believe could really address these issues of corruption, or could really bring a government that is really emphasizing or really that could possibly manifest good governance of transparency, accountability, and people are really going down. Right? Siguro if you can see lahat, madaming mga artista, mga ordinaryong mga mamamayan, are going down to the different communities and try to convince people or try to educate people on what kind of leader should we really be electing in this election. That is something that I can say, right? Isang combination nito na nakikita natin that could possibly be the future of elections. From social media, I mean, very active. I mean, social media will be playing a role and it's playing a role actually in this election. And it's actually it was actually a way in mobilizing people to go down, right, or to push for their candidates. I mean, for people to be educated and for people to be transformed from a certain perspective of a leader to a perspective of a leader that they really want to manage or to lead the country.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about programs or policies of presidential candidates that may have been given less importance. You think which topics would these be, or not given enough solutions to pressing problems? What issues do you think have been somehow ignored that need the attention of government?
For me, I would really point out, right, that the issue of our farmers have been ignored. It's a very important issue that that have been ignored. I mean, maybe the government, and of course, I would like to point out this is how I see how the government was able to deal with different issues in the society. And I think there were more because of this reactive nature or the reactive stance, right, of Philippine government into different issues. They failed to look at important issues that have to be addressed. And I would like to point out that agriculture has been left behind. Mm-hmm. Our farmers have been left behind. That's why we are encountering now, or we're experiencing issues of, napakamahal na mga bilihin, and then also, the issue of rice. Now, the issue of our farmers. Speaking, I would like to say, of course, I'm a farmer. My family is a farmer that have been experiencing that, yung napakamahal na presyo ng mga farm inputs, and when you are going to sell this, napaka binabarat ito ng mga traders, and I think that kind of issue.
It needs to be highlighted. The plight of the farmers definitely need to be highlighted. I did hear a number of presidential candidates who actually have, and vice presidential candidates who have a policy or program rather for our farmers. Sa hirap po ng dinadanas nila ay napakaliit talaga ng kanilang mga yung kanilang income. Sabi mo nga, ano ba ginamit niyo pong salita? Nababarat, yung bahun sinabi ninyo, nababarat pa nga ang ating mga magsasaka. Professor, okay, thank you so much for your time. And of course, the polls are still open until 7 p.m. We will continue our coverage. Professor Ogadan, maraming salamat po sa inyo. We will be right back after a quick break. Keep it here on CNN Philippines News You Can Trust. Of the Filipino Votes 2022. There are over 65 million registered voters for today's election. Almost 1.7 million are registered overseas voters. Up to 65.8 million registered voters will troop to public schools and other voting centers today, May 9th. What do you need to bring para po sa pupunta pa rin sa mga presinto? What should you wear? Our Melissa Lopez tells us the do's and don'ts on Election Day.
The Commission on Elections says preparations to vote on May 9th start at home. Commissioners say voters should do their research early and make a list of chosen candidates to speed up the voting process. Although smartphones are allowed inside the precinct, it's best to write down the names of candidates on a piece of paper. Sample ballots are also allowed. If possible, you should visit the COMELEC's Precinct Finder page to know where you are voting. You should also write down the precinct number. Now, what should you wear? Commissioner George Garcia says any color is accepted, even those identified with the campaigns. But do not wear shirts or even masks bearing the names or faces of candidates to the voting center.
mas maganda po wag na lang pong magsusuot ng ganon. Pero yung kulay, it doesn't really matter. Basta dapat may damit, kaysa naman yung walang damit, sure, hindi makakapasok. Bawal na po ang pangangampanya sa Mayo 9. Simula po nga ng Mayo 8, bawal na po ang campaigning.
You may head to the precinct anytime from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. You should also wear a face mask. An ID is not required, but the poll buddy says it's good to have one ready in case someone questions your identity. At the precinct, make sure to use the COMELEC's official marking pen when shading the ballot. Do not use a regular pen as its pointy edge might pierce through the ballot and invalidate your vote. COMELEC's stern reminder, do not take photos or selfies with your ballot and of the voter's receipt. Pack some patience as lines could be long. Precincts can only accommodate up to 10 voters at a time for social distancing.
Sa amin pong estima, kapag po kayo ay may dala po kayong kodigo, mga 3 to 5 minutes lang po tapos kayo sa pagboto. Mas maganda po mapadali natin din yung pagboto natin at mapadali rin yung pag-alis natin sa polling place dahil nga sa banta ng COVID-19.
Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
A poll watchdog backed by the Catholic Church says it expects electronic results of the elections to start coming in for their parallel, partial, and unofficial count an hour after polling precincts close at 7 p.m. The Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting says that within 24 hours, election winners will likely be known. PPCRV Chairman Emeritus Tita De Villa insists they do not favor any candidate. The group has 500,000 volunteers deployed to 100,000 clustered precincts. As to reports of malfunctioning of some voting counting machines, this is what the poll watchdog is doing.
In one area, the VCM failed. It did work for a few minutes, but then it suffered a breakdown. So the voters were told to accomplish their ballots but leave them already with the electoral board. Our legal counsel said, and COMELEC said also, pwede yon. Pwede nilang iwan, pero kung gusto nilang intayin at sila mag-insert, pwede rin. Ngayon, ang ina-alert sa mga poll watchers ng PPCRV, doon sa mga nag-iwan, those who left their accomplished ballots with the electoral board, our PPCRV poll watcher should see to it that when the vote counting machine is fixed, that these ballots are inserted inside the VCM.
It's been hours since voting began. We asked netizens how was their voting experience. We have again our Menshu, Makapagal Menshu. Anong sabi nila?
Nako, Pinky, mukhang medyo maraming nahirapan or nagka-experience ng aberya sa kanilang voting experience today. Tulad na lang nito, si Dennis nagkwento sa Facebook, 2 hours daw siyang nakapila pero hindi daw siya mapapagod para sa bayan. Ito naman from Cooks, Punsalan, sinasabi niya, naku, napakasama ng experience niya. Grabe, 3 precincts ang sira ang VCM. Sa barangay Matandang Balara sa Quezon City, again, 3 yung nasirang vote counting machines as early as 7 o'clock this morning. Myra May tells us on Facebook, the voting process in her precinct in Milanilla, Cebu was slightly delayed because the ballots provided by the COMELEC to their precinct were mixed with ballots from Tagbilaran, Bohol. Si Rodelia Abraham Sohor naman, meron din siyang kwento na sinasabi that she was, actually, mas natuwa daw siya na maraming tumulong sa asawa niyang naka-wheelchair. Sabi niya, voting was speedy and very smooth. Doon daw ito sa Kabili Village Precinct sa Iligan City. So mukhang may mangilan din na hindi nahirapan sa kanilang pagboto ngayon. Si Tony De Leon Piamonte said that ganun din, 15 minutes lang yung proseso para sa kanya. She arrived early and was first in line, done in 15 minutes. Now, Ray Nash here, kinuwento niya na first time daw niya to vote as a senior citizen. The whole process went very smoothly and it took less than 5 minutes. So there you go. That is it from our netizens right now. Pinky, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Menchu. Keep it here on CNN Philippines as we deliver in-depth coverage of the national and local elections today. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes 2022. Quezon City is the most vote-rich area in Metro Manila. Our Tristan Nadalo is covering the elections there. Tristan, how's it going?
Pinky, and mindful of the scorching heat, long lines, and possible hours of waiting, voters trooped to over 170 polling centers in Quezon City. But like in many other areas, delays were also experienced due to defective vote counting machines or VCMs. Earlier, we were at the Commonwealth Elementary School, one of the biggest polling centers in the city with over 30,000 registered voters. Some of the voters there said that they were told to leave their ballots while the VCM is being fixed. Based on our monitoring, defective VCMs in the city have also been recorded at Culiat Elementary School, Tandang Sora Elementary School, Corazon Aquino, Pasong Tamo, Payatas, Teachers Village, and Diliman voting centers, among others. The poll body insists voters have two options. When the VCM is not working, first, wait until it's repaired, or leave the ballots under the custody of the Electoral Board. But some voters that we were able to speak to said that they are not confident on the second option.
So wala pong reason para huminto ang botohan, magka-issue man po sa VCM. We have watchers in place at doon po naman sa hindi makapag-feed ng balota, meron po tayong watchers. Nandiyan po ang PPCRV, wag po kayong matakot.
Pinky, we are here at the Christ the King Seminary Voting Center, wherein some 2,000 voters are expected to cast their votes here. So far, so good, according to election officials. But earlier, one vote counting machine malfunctioned that caused some delays in the voting process. Back to you.
Any other concerns, Tristan, apart from glitches in VCMs like we mentioned a while ago? Quezon City has 1.4 million registered voters.
One of the concerns that were raised by the voters came from the group of senior citizens. Earlier at the Commonwealth Elementary School, some of them said that their precincts are not accessible to them because yung iba nga nakita natin nasa ika-4 na napalapag, so hirap na hirap silang akyatin yung kanilang mga presinto. Also, some voters complained about not being able to vote because their names are not on the official ballot list, but election officials here say that it's up to the COMELEC to decide and they cannot do anything about it if they're not on the official list. Back to you.
Pero hindi ba, Tristan, dapat especially kapag ang pinakamadali dapat ay yung mga pagbotohan, yung mga PWD at yung mga senior citizens. So, gaya nung sinabi mo kanina, tama ba yung rinig ko, yung mga senior citizens had to go to the 4th floor para makapagboto?
Yes, Pinky. Sila kasi kanina, libaw sa Commonwealth Elementary School, sila yung mga nasa unahan ng pila. Pagkatapos, nung nakita na nila yung mga presinto nila, na doon pa sa ika-4 na palapag nung paaralan. So yung iba talaga hirap na hirap umakyat. Although, meron namang pinonovide din na emergency assistance areas para sa mga PWD at para sa mga senior citizen. Ang problema lang, hindi doon yung vote counting machine. So ang mangyayari, they can vote there, pero ang magdadala ng mga balota nila ay yung election official at hindi mismo yung mga botante. So isa yun din sa mga concern on whether mas gusto ba nilang umakyat sa taas or maghintay dun sa emergency assistance area.
Marami siguro sa kanila ayaw yun dahil gusto nila sila magpasok ng kanilang balota, di ba?
Oo, Pinky, yun. Mas gusto nilang sila nga.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo. Thank you, Tristan Nadalo, reporting to us from Quezon City. Let's go back to the Visayas. Our stringer Wilmark Amazonas covering the elections there. Wilmark, what's the latest?
Yeah.
Wilmark, go ahead.
Yes, Pinky. At least 2 vote counting machine malfunctioned at the Kapangian Central School here in Tacloban. Nita Hungko, Deputy Election Officer, said that they immediately informed the regional office of the Commission on Election about it. And voters what to do after experiencing the problem. One is to wait for the replacement VCM so they can personally feed the ballot to the machine. The second option is to leave it and allow the members of the electoral board to feed the ballot to the machine for them. Despite the problem on VCM, the officer said that voting at the said school has gone smoothly. Voters have no complaint except those who had difficulty looking for their voting percent. Included in the affected voter due to VCM malfunction was Vice Mayor Jerry Yaucasin, who is challenging Mayor Alfred Romualdez. Yaucasin was joined by his family in voting at their polling precinct. When they arrived at the scanner of the VCM was not working. They waited for about 5 minutes before they were able to cast their vote. About 70% of the total population of voters in Kapangian Central School has already cast their votes. The school covers 19%, which includes certain villages within the city proper. There are more than 6,000 registered voters casting votes in the school. The regional office of the Commission on Election confirmed the several VCM glitches encountered. However, they were not able to provide the list of areas where the glitches happened because they are still collecting reports. Back to you, Pinky.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Wilmark Amazona, reporting to us there. We are showing you live shots from Davao City, where President Rodrigo Duterte has arrived. If I'm not mistaken, this is the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. So we've been reporting a while ago on the presidential candidates who have cast their votes. Yung isa po, yung Pangulo natin, ay marami na rin po naghihintay kung kailan siya boboto, and that is going to happen right now. The president over there in Davao City again at Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. Of course, pinagkakaguluhan po siya ng kanyang mga kababayan dyan sa Davao, and we should expect him to vote anytime now. Who the president will be voting, definitely that's something we don't know for president, because one thing that we are sure of is that the president said he is not endorsing any presidential candidate. A number of candidates have been wanting or waiting for President Duterte to endorse them. But as mentioned by the president in one of his last talk to the people, wala po siyang i-endorso. Sabi pa nga niya, wala akong i-endorso hanggang sa Disyembre. But for Vice President, obviously, the President has endorsed his daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. So again, the President there, arriving at the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School to cast his vote. Our senior correspondent, of course, David Santos, is also there monitoring the events. I believe this would be the same. Is this the same school kung saan bumoto si Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte? So yung kanya pong anak ay bumoto kanina umaga at nagbigay ng panayam sa media. I do remember some parts of Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte during her interview. Sabi niya, she will remain loyal to BBM. Isa po yun sa kanyang mga sinabi. So maaga po siyang bumoto, and later in the afternoon now, almost 5 p.m. dumating naman po si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. So we will get more information on, ayan, papasok na po siya sa classroom para bumoto, pero panay ang kanyang kaway sa mga tao sa paligid na natutuwang nakita po si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Okay, so he is being assisted. Is it the precinct? 12458. 12458. Tinutulungan na po siya, is being assisted, of course, ng ilang mga guro dyan para sa kanyang pagboto. Alright, so at this point, bibigay na po yung balota sa kanya at ipinapaliwanag kung anong dapat gawin. Certainly, the president already knows what to do, but just like with others and the other voters, yan naman po yung SOP o protocol sa mga botante at upo na po siya para nga bumoto. And again, live shots at the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School where the president has arrived, President Rodrigo Duterte, to vote today for the May 9 elections. As mentioned a while ago, the president already, of course, endorsed his daughter, Davao City and Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte, but he had stressed that he was not going to endorse any candidate for president. Now, anong ibig sabihin nun? He will not endorse anyone. The question remains, will he vote for someone for president? Will he vote for a presidential candidate? Of course, that will be up to the president. So we're still joined by sociologist Nicole Curato. Nicole, so there you have it, the president now voting. Gaya ng sabi ko kanina, obvious naman sino yung kanyang vice presidential candidate. But I do remember him saying, because there were a number of candidates who have been wanting the president to endorse them. Kasi para sa kanila, malaking tulong pa rin ang pag-endorso ni Pangulong Duterte sa kanilang kandidatura. But remember, he said that he's not endorsing any candidate. He even went as far as saying, I'm not going to endorse any candidate until December.
Yeah, that's quite peculiar, isn't it? Well, it's President Duterte. We're used to him by now. But I can imagine why many candidates want to get his endorsement, because I think based on actually on the study I quoted a while ago, how people view President Duterte is also a predictor on how they will vote in this election. So I think the influence of the president is still very much present.
Absolutely. Because even if I don't know if that would automatically translate into votes, but looking at his trust ratings, mataas pa rin eh. Di ba patuloy naman na mataas yung trust ratings ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. And even if, you were reaching actually the last year of your term, di ba tinatawag ka na ngang lame duck president, di ba? But in terms of trust and performance rating, he was still scoring quite high or good.
Yes. Actually, I was trying to figure this out when I was doing my own research, this time naman in Barangay Payatas in Quezon City. So I was asking our research participants how long or how much patience will they have for the next president? How long will they wait for the reforms that their candidate promised? And you know what they said? They said 6 years. Kasi binoto namin sila ng 6 years. So hihintayin namin siyang mag-deliver ng promise until 6 years. And I think that also applies to President Duterte. the Filipinos are very patient and understanding in terms of how fast a president can deliver on his promise, even though President Duterte said 3 to 6 months.
Right, his campaign promise was 3 to 6 months.
To be fair, he did deliver on his campaign promise, which is it will be bloody. And Pinky, it has been bloody.
But 3 to 6 months, and you have a president also who admitted time and time again that nagkamali ako. My assessment of the drug war was very different from how I had thought of it when I was Davao City Mayor, hindi ba? That's why I remember at one point he said that he was going to extend this. And then at a certain point, sabi niya, hindi din talaga ito masosolve even until the end of his term. So that problem continues to, well, will continue to persist and be upon us.
Yes, and I think, I just wonder, and this is a speculation on my part, this is not a learned observation, I wonder how this impacts candidates who are mayors, who claim to replicate what they did in their own cities to the rest of the country. And obviously now I'm thinking about Mayor Isko Moreno, because his promise was to replicate what he did in Manila and replicate it to the entire country. And then you have this incredibly popular president admitting that his decades of service in Davao City, that's nothing compared to when you start ruling the nation.
When
so
he
baka
became
yung
president.
ganong logic na I'm a good mayor, I can be a good president, maybe it will not work anymore.
Okay. Let's talk to our senior correspondent, David Santos. He's on the line right now. David.
Yes, Pinky, kakapasok lang ni President Duterte sa kanyang polling percent dito sa Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School dito sa Davao City para to cast his vote. I think he's inside his polling percent for about 10 minutes now. He made his way to his designated polling center. But before that, pagbaba niya sa kanyang presidential car, lumapit muna sa mga tao, medyo nagtumahog yung kanyang mga security. I just want to point out that Pinky, kasi medyo mahigpit, kasi remember we are still in a pandemic, so compared yung mga previous elections nung bumoto si Presidente, medyo mas dumoble yung security na kailangang i-implement ng PSG, well, to ensure his safety as well as his security. So medyo nagulat lang kami kanina na pagkababa niya ng kotse ay dumiretso sa mga tao, nakipagkawayan for a few moments, and then saka dumiretso sa kanyang presinto. As we can see now, nasa presinto pa rin siya ng kanyang kanyang designated precinct. Ito yung 1245A clustered precinct na ito rin yung the same polling precinct kung saan bumoto earlier today ang kanyang anak at Davao City Mayor at Vice Presidential contender na si Sara Duterte. Sa ngayon, inaantay natin ang possibility na magbibigay pa siya ng statement or mag-grant ng media interview after casting his vote. So far, aside from the PSG personnel na nakikita natin nakapalibot or at least nakabantay sa labas ng polling precinct kung saan bumoboto ngayon ang Pangulo, may ilang personalities na kikita tayo dyan, gaya ng PSG commander na si Brigadier General Randy Cabangbang, gayon din si Aztec Bam Principe na isa sa mga closest na tauhan ni Pangulong Duterte. Way back, nung time pa, nung mayor pa siya sa City Hall and now working with him in Malacanang. Sa ngayon, Pinky, inaantabayanan nga natin yung possibility na magbibigay siya ng pahayag. The President has been here in Davao City since, I think, Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. He attended the meeting, the avance of his son, Baste Duterte, who's running for mayor. It was also an event na inattend din ni Sara Duterte, but hindi sila nagkasama in that particular event. Hindi rin ito inattend ng kanyang isa pang anak na si Congressman Paulo Duterte, who is seeking re-election as Congressman of 1st District of Davao City. Okay?
Oo, si Baste, di ba, David, pinalitan niya yung kanyang kapatid when Sara Duterte decided to run to gun for the vice presidency. Just going back, the Sara Duterte was going to run for re-election. And then nag-file siya ng kanyang certificate of candidacy. And then at some point, nag-withdraw siya, tama no? And then nag-file siya for vice presidency. And then si Baste ang nag-take over kay Sara Duterte, natatakbo bilang mayor.
Tama ka, Pinky. He trace back, no? May atras tayo ng konti. I-recall, no, months, weeks before nung filing ng COCs, Sara Duterte was saying na she could run, she could seek a national post if hindi tatakbo si President Duterte. If you recall, back then, may mga ugong-ugong na maaring tumakbo sang Vice President. So alam mo yun, parang atras sa bante, back and forth silang dalawa kung sino ba talaga sa kanilang dalawa ang tatakbo. It kept the public as Filipinos speculating on their plans, no? So eventually, until the last minute, Sara Duterte made the decision to run for Vice President at magiging running mate sa ni Bongbong Marcos. No? Parang it's reminiscent of how his father also, carried out his decision to run in 2016 na last minute din. So, yun, no? Tama ka. And then, Baste eventually was supposed to be running for re-election kasi Sara had filed initially her candidacy for mayor of Davao. Pero yun, dahil nga nag-file na for VP si Sara, kinailangan din i-withdraw ni Baste yung kanyang candidacy for Vice Mayor of Davao.
David, we're showing live pictures now of the president. He just finished voting. Kakatayo lang niya sa upuan at pinapakita na sa election officer yung folder, no? Siyempre, nakapasok pa sa folder yung kanyang balota. Hinihintay na lang na ipasok sa vote counting machine. Ayan na. Actually, that's happening as we speak. So, I was trying to see. Napasok na yung no? Ayun. So, successfully accepted by the vote counting machine. At ang hihintayin natin ngayon ay yung paglabas nung kanyang boto, yung resibo, kumbaga, nung kanyang boto to check if indeed it is accurate doon sa kanyang naging pag-shade sa balota. The president now checking this and being told that he needs to, upon checking, kailangan niyang i-drop yun.
Pandemic time. Nakakalapit pa tayo mismo sa bintana nung polling precinct to actually witness.
Nakikita mo, David?
No, at this point, medyo silhouette na lang yung nakikita namin because we're sitting parang 2 meters away, no? Set by his security personnel. Although mas malapit pa nga yung, kasi alam mo, Pinky, kung saan sa boboto, may mga nakapila pang mga ibang botante rin, I think in his own precinct, no? So parang nag-giveaway muna sila for the president kasi, as an arrangement siguro with the school as well as nung election board sa kanyang designated precinct, nag-giveaway muna sila dahil considering marasadong elaborating security and safety protocols na pinapatupad. Pero marami pang mga botante ang nag-aabang sa labas ng kanyang presinto na boboto rin. So, can you just imagine, sila pa yung nasa harap ngayon, mas malapit. Siguro a meter away from where the president
ayan, David. Tapos na siyang bumoto, tapos na yung paglagay ng indelible ink at naglalakad na siya palabas ng presinto. Ito ngang 1245A ng Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. Nakikipag-usap lang siya sa ilang mga individual doon sa loob ng presinto.
Tama ka dyan.
Tingnan natin kung magpapa-interview, David.
Oo nga eh. Kanina dyan din bumoto, no? Si Sara Duterte. At kanina medyo mas magilo kasi we were given the opportunity to come closer to the polling precinct. So mas malapitan natin na witness yung pagboto ni Mayor Sara Duterte. Pero in this case, siyempre mas mahigpit dahil may mga PSG nakapalibot. Kaya palabas na sa naghihiyawan yung mga tao, nagsisigawan. Yung pagdating pa lang niya kanina, nagsisigawan sila Duterte. Duterte. And of course, we understand, no? He's Davao City's favorite son. Ayan, parang he's showing to
Dinidisplay niya, oo.
Oo, pinapakita niya sa mga botante at naglabasan ng cellphone yung mga botante. Kinukunan siya ng picture na pinapakita niya yung kanyang, nagsisigawan sila ng, they are shouting his name, no? And then pinakita niya yung kanyang finger na may indelible ink as an indication na nakaboto na nga siya. So yun, inaantay na lang natin anytime. Kasama pala niya ang kanyang partner,
Andyan si Hanilet.
Opo.
Okay.
At ang last time in 2016 kasi kasama niya si Kitty, no? Kitty then was only 12 years old. Pero ngayon, hindi natin napansin kung kasama rin ba niya for this particular election. Nakita natin si Senator Bongo, kasama rin niya na pumunta dito sa polling precinct. Medyo yumuko lang ang Pangulo. I think this is the same way na ni-request nila kay Mayor Sara kanina na pinapirma nilang isa sa mga armchair dito sa eskwelahan na ito because ang sabi ng eskwelahan they wanted to parang gusto nilang gawing souvenir sa kanilang itatayong museum for this school. So parang it's a historic moment for them, particularly for this school. Itong Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School. Kung kaya they requested both Mayor Sara as well as the President now his turn signing, I think, no? Pinipirmahan niya isa sa mga armchairs dito sa sa labas ng kanilang polling precinct. Ayan, tumayo na ang Pangulo. Yes.
Ayan. Patayo na nga. Ang daming ang tao, nakikita natin. Tinanggal pa yung kanyang face mask para sa... Ayan, magsasalita. Let's listen. Let's see if we can hear.
We could barely hear, no? Kasi, Pinky, walang mikropono na nakalagay kung saan nakapwesto sa ngayon. Yung mikropono, supposedly kung saan... Ayan, mukhang aabutan na siya ng mikropono.
Sir?
Ayan, inabutan na siya ng mikropono ng kanyang security personnel. Let's listen into the President. Mukhang may magsasalita.
Kabong taga...
Ayan, inalis na yung kanyang mask para... Ayan, pinatest lang yung action.
Dungog na ko ninyo? Wa ko kadungog ka rin. Siguro, tiguang na yun. Ako mo talikuray na sa akong pagka-presidente. Gusto lang ko makadungugog ang akong kinasing-kasing nga pagpasalamat kaninyong taga Davao. Kamo ang gasugod sa akong journey, sa akong paglakbay ngadto sa Malacañang. O naabag po ko'y mga anak, hibaw ko humanaw ang boto, pero og tan-aw ninyo nga maayo ang pagkadaan nila sa siyudad, ako, mangayo ko sa inyong tabang. Humanaman magboto, bawa naman po. Salamat na lang po sa inyong tabang kanila. Unya, ako ni Ara sa Davao. So, basig civilian ako, ug unsa may akong mahimo nimo, sama sa akong giingon, ni adto pa pagsugod nako pagka-mayor, ako, si Rodrigo Duterte, magpabilin inyong sulugon. Daghang salamat. Hoy, mga buang dili dako kandidato. Salamat ha. Daghan kaayong salamat. Hoy, mga buang dili dako kandidato. Salamat ha. Daghan kaayong salamat.
For, their
David, sorry, kakapasok mo lang. Go ahead.
Sorry, you will have to forgive me, for my limited understanding of the Visayan dialect. But basically, I'm from Mindanao, pero I speak Chavacano. But anyway, basically, inulit lang ni Presidente yung kanyang naging mensahe during the meeting de Avance noong last Friday ng kanyang anak na si Mayor Baste Duterte, standing for Mayor. Nagpasalamat siya sa mga taga Davao for, basically, sabi niya, bringing me, accompanying me to my journey to Malacanang. At nagpasalamat din siya sa, I don't know how to interpret it because I need to double check, pero parang nagpapasalamat siya sa mga botante na, from here sa Davao City na bumoto sa kanyang mga anak na tumatakbo sa mga different positions from Sara Duterte to Baste Duterte and to Paolo Duterte, and Paolo Duterte who's running for the first district representative ng Davao City. So basically, yun, inulit lang niya, and then he made a joke about when people were cheering him or were chanting his name. Sabi niya, mga buang, mga baliw, hindi ako ang kandidato. Sabi niya, that's the very typical of the president to make jokes whenever, especially when he delivers speeches in his hometown, which is Davao City. So we're just hoping na any moment now, he's just making his way to the designated area kung saan dapat magkakaroon media opportunity or opportunity for the journalists covering this event to ask some questions.
Let's see.
Medyo dagtap, ang dami pa rin tao kung saan mismo dapat tatayo ang Pangulo kasi I would just like to add also, Pinky, alam mo, mula umaga hanggang ngayon, hindi maubos-ubos yung mga botante dito sa Daniel Aguinaldo National High School. We've been reporting it throughout the day na, alam mo, medyo bumagal nga yung proseso compared to previous elections. Kaya that explains kung bakit at this point, ang dami pa rin mga botante nag-aantay, waiting for their turn to be able to cast their ballot sa 11 clustered precincts dito sa particular na polling place na ito. So, ayun, we're not sure kung at this point we're not getting any signal yet if magkakaroon pa ng opportunity si Pangulong Duterte to speak to the media.
Parang David, papasok na ng sasakyan unless may ibang lugar kayong posibleng puntahan. But just the same, antabayanan natin yan, David. We see the President already boarding his car. Indeed, if he will give some sort of, if he talks to the media in a bit, David Santos will be there to cover that for us. David, thank you so much for that report. And while we're showing you still live pictures after the President's vote, I just want to go back to Nicole. Nicole will have to go in a bit. Nicole, so, what I wanted to find out from you, the President has less than, 2 months after his 6-year term. How much of a comparison do you think, whoever wins, will this next president be? Will this next president be always, you think, be compared to Rodrigo Duterte, to President Rodrigo Duterte?
I think that's inevitable. President Duterte is larger than life. But also, I think we also have to recognize that President Duterte also exemplifies continuity, despite him claiming to be the change candidate in 2016. The way he governed is also a product of continuity. He continued the projects of President Aquino. He continued for peace, which lifted, I think, 6 million people out of poverty. So I think the core message I want to convey as well is that even if our president changes, some of these policies potentially will continue, and that's what a lot of people are also hoping to see. It's just that there's an expectation that more people will be reached by these policies.
Okay, Nicole Curato again. As always, thank you so much for joining us in today's special coverage.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. And we will be back after a quick break. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines News You Can Trust.
For a number of hours every 6 years, Filipinos get a chance to chart their future by electing leaders to more than 18,000 positions, including the president. The Filipino Votes on this big day. More than 65 million voters making their voices heard by one shade on the ballot and making a stand for a better life emerging from the health and economic crisis and against corruption, crime, illegal drugs, and many more. On this day that will go down in history, the future of the country is at stake. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022.
Good afternoon, I'm Pinky Webb. Join me in the next few hours as we continue to give you live and in-depth coverage of this year's national and local elections. All 10 presidential candidates have cast their votes today. Despite some reports of defective vote counting machines, tens of millions of Filipinos trooped to polling precincts to choose their next set of leader. Stark differences between two polling centers. In Pasig, the fourth richest city in the country with more than 457,000 voters. In 2019, then neophyte Vico Soto ended the Eusebio family's nearly 3-decade rule in the city. He's now on a head-to-head battle against Vice Mayor Iyo Bernardo. Amor Santos joins us live for the details. Amor, go ahead.
Yes, Pinky, we're now here at the covered court in Valle Verde 5, Pasig City, where re-electionist Mayor Vico Soto cast his vote this afternoon. Voters described the voting process as generally smooth, despite the long lines, the waiting time of more than or around 2 hours, and also a few minor glitches. It's a very different scenario this morning at Pasig Elementary School, a bigger polling place where voters turned restless. Some even shouted as it opened late.
So we're expecting na pagdating ng alas 6, magsisimula na silang magpapasok.
Worth it naman, para sa bayan naman. At sana kahit mainit and mahaba ang pila, I hope that it will not discourage ang sambayan ng Pilipino to exercise their right to vote.
COMELEC Citizen Arm PPCRV Chairperson Myla Villanueva visited Pasig Elementary School earlier, and she said high voter turnout caused long lines, calling it a very emotional election. Outside the school, people still handing out campaign flyers despite the ban on campaigning on Election Day. One supporter reasoned out, others are doing it too. Meanwhile, here in Valle Verde, Mayor Vico Soto arrived around 2:30 this afternoon and waited in line. He was able to vote 30 minutes later. In an interview, Soto appeals for patience amid reports of vote counting machine malfunction.
Monitor din namin yung mga areas na may problema yung VCMs. Sinasabihan namin yung poll watchers para makasiguro na yung mga, di ba yung iba iniiwanan kasi yung balota at yung BI na yung magpapasok mamaya. So, kailangan bantayan din natin yun. Although, wala naman tayong ini-expect na kahit ano, pero syempre mas mabuti na po yung alisto tayong lahat.
A common common machine problem, paper jam. At least 50 incidents have been recorded, and while they get resolved quickly, they still add to voter waiting time. Soto also admits a number of buildings in Pasig still lack facilities for people with disabilities, but he hopes this will be addressed for the midterm election in 2025. Now, Pinky, just a few minutes ago, we were able to speak to Mayor Vico Soto's father, the comedian and actor Vic Soto, and he said he's already congratulating his son in advance for the changes that he has done in Pasig and that he's looking forward to his son's next 3-year term. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Amor Santos. COMELEC Chairman Saidaman Pangarungan is speaking to the media. Let's listen in.
Ang number of violent incidents was 60. Ngayon, ang na-report lang is 15 incidents. So I would still consider this election as relatively peaceful compared to the elections in 2019.
Sir, sa PNP naman, particularly update lang dun sa encounter between armed men of mayoralty candidates sa General Tino Nueva Ecija. Baka may update po kayo.
General Tino Nueva Ecija daw po, General Nobleza, sir.
Sir, this incident happened last May 7. It was the shooting incident happened between the supporters of the mayoralty candidate in General Tino. And so far, sir, the PNP was able to confiscate plenty of numbers of firearms, such as M16 rifles, totaling to 5 M16 rifles, 11 caliber 45 pistols, 3 caliber 9mm pistols, 1 caliber 40 pistol, and 1 12-gauge shotgun. And when the PNP responded in the area of shooting, so sir, the PNP was able they were able to because there were wounded security personnel on the side of the mayoralty candidate Bute, and the suspects were arrested. So the PNP was able to arrest suspects, and the corresponding cases will be filed in court. And because of the recovery of the firearms and the crime scene, including the arrest of the suspects.
Sir, will you recommend na maisailalim sa areas of concern ng General Tino at yung turing po ng PNP sa ganun, since ang dami pong armed men, sila ba ay considered as private armed group ng local politicians?
So far, sir, this is not listed in our in the PNP list as private armed groups. But when we had a meeting this morning by the members of the Committee on the Ban on Firearms and Security Concerns, this place was not recommended under COMELEC control because everything is still under control by the PNP, the EFP, and other security forces. And we are not recommending that this place, General Tino, be under COMELEC control. Thank you.
And lastly, for the record lang po, General, kailan ba maiko-consider na private armed group ang security personnel ng politiko? Considering na ang dami po nung naaresto sa General Tino.
Of course, if you are talking of private armed groups, so these are group of persons that are confederating and helping each other for the advancement of one political candidate. So in this case, we could say that this group are private armed groups because of the firearms and the number of suspects that were arrested by the PNP.
And last, anong liability nung mayoralty candidate na nagko-control dun sa armed group?
Sir, we will still investigate because investigation is still ongoing. So we would just furnish the COMELEC with the complete investigation of this particular case.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Johnson. Martin Sadongdong of Manila Bulletin.
Hi, sirs. Good afternoon po. Sir, this question is addressed to Colonel Zagala and Brigadier General Nobleza, sirs. Earlier, sir, you mentioned sa AFP we have 15 violent incidents, and for the PNP we have 16 validated incidents. Can you just specify what type of incidents yung binabanggit natin? Are these shooting incidents, bomb attacks, etc.?
For the AFP, what was reported to us is 2 explosions, 2 shootings, 1 grenade throwing, 2 ambush, 2 armed clash between political rivals, indiscriminate firing isa, indiscriminate firing with ballot snatching isa, and strafing 3.
Sir, sorry, pasingit. Can you just specify din kung saang areas po ito? Thank you.
The strafing is in Buluan, Maguindanao. Explosion is in Barangay Poblacion, Kabakan, Cotabato. There's no casualty. Explosion in Barangay Daladagan in Magdadatu, Maguindanao. No casualty. Grenade throwing did not explode in Barangay Pag-asa in Kalamansig, Sultan Kudarat. The ambush is in Barangay Panapan in Magdadatu, Maguindanao. The armed clash is in Pandag, Maguindanao. Armed clash also is in Barangay Pagada in Maguindanao. Shooting in Malabang National High School in Malabang, Lanao del Sur. Shooting in Barangay Arsao in Malabang, Lanao del Sur. Ambush in Pandag, Maguindanao. The strafing in Barangay Lower Kabengbeng in Basilan. Strafing in Tong Umos Tupaan Island in Basilan Province. Ballot snatching in Basilan Province. Indiscriminate firing in Basilan Province, and another indiscriminate firing also in Basilan Province.
For the PNP, sir. Thank you. Can you just specify, sir, what areas and what type of incidents yung nabanggit natin kanina na 16 validated incidents po? Thank you, sir.
General Nobleza, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm talking about when the election period starts.
Yes,
so because we have all the data pertaining to the validated election-related incidents since the start of the election period. That was January 9 up to today. So based on our record, we have recorded a total of 4 validated incidents happened in Region 1, and Region 3, 5. Region 9 is 4, Region 10, 1, Cordillera is 2. But we still need to include all the incidents happened today.
So dun sa 16 incidents, sir, hindi pa kasama yung nangyari today,
Yes,
sir?
all these incidents happened, all the incidents happened today are not yet included in those incidents that I mentioned.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Celi Bueno, DWIC.
Sir, ngayong 1.5 hour na lang, magko-close na yung mga polling precinct. Mas crucial ba yung mga susunod na oras pagdating sa security? Kasi may mga report na may ilang mga lugar na medyo maiinit ho yung mga botante, lalo na yung mga hindi nga nila personally na ipasok yung kanilang mga balota dun sa mga nag-malfunction na mga VCM. Mas crucial po ba yung mga susunod na oras? And then mas i-intensify po ba yung security na ipatutupad?
Kanino po yung tanong, ma'am?
Siguro kay Chairman o kaya sa mga security
Security forces, gentlemen. Colonel Sagala.
Of course, right now, our concern is security. No? So we've already laid out more or less almost 70,000 troops to support COMELEC and the Philippine National Police in all these areas of concern. So our duty now is to ensure that we stabilize, de-escalate the areas where there is...
That's a media briefing with COMELEC and, of course, the AFP and the PNP. Some of the incidents mentioned today on the areas that had problems, we will be able to discuss that a little later on because we will have DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya with us. He can give us a rundown of what was discussed during that press briefing. We will have him a little later on in the program. And just a reminder, lahat po sa mga boboto, maaari pa rin ho kayong humabol. 5:29 na. You still have an hour and 30 minutes. You have until 7 p.m. to cast your votes. Of course, voting started at 6 a.m. naantala sa ilang mga lugar. And it will end at 7 p.m. Of course, huwag niyo pong kalimutan to wear a face mask and observe as much as possible safety protocols. Magdala ng kodigo ng inyong mga kandidato para po mas mapabilis ang inyong pagboto. And we will keep a close watch on the progress of today's vote and will bring you the results as we get them. This is CNN Philippines special coverage. The Filipino Votes Election Day 2022. I'm Pinky Webb, and I'll see you at 6 p.m. We'll be speaking to DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya. He's joining us here in the studio. See you at 6 p.m. after Traffic Center.
It's another manic Monday. We bring you real-time road check. Our first stop, EDSA Guadalupe in Makati, a major choke point in Metro Manila. For last-minute voters traveling via EDSA, if you're northbound to Shaw Boulevard in Mandaluyong, take a look at the right lane. No worries for you. Traffic is moving just fine over there. And you can expect the same situation southbound to Hill Puyat Avenue on the left lane. Traffic there is green and go. On to Alabang Viaduct along the Skyway. Great news for motorists, whether you're northbound to Pasay and Makati on the right lane or southbound to Muntinlupa on the left lane, you can expect a quick drive. We have more on EDSA and the Skyway in a moment. This is the Traffic Center on CNN Philippines. Glad you can join us. Sam Sidwani here. CNN Philippines is your most trusted destination for live, up-to-the-minute and in-depth coverage of today's historic vote. If patience is a virtue, many voters are taking that to heart amid long lines at polling centers, causing delays and confusion on Election Day. In Commonwealth Elementary School, one of the biggest voting centers in Quezon City, with over 30,000 registered voters, poll workers are greeted with huge crowds several hours before polling even officially began.
Para maaga ding makauwi dahil mainit. Para maaga ding matapos.
Voters and election watchdogs are sounding the alarm on vote counting machine glitches on Election Day. Let's get into details with our Tristan Nodalo. He joins us live from Quezon City. Tristan, what went wrong?
Sam, unmindful of the scorching heat, long lines, and waiting for hours, voters still troop to over 170 voting centers in Quezon City. But delays, like in other areas, were experienced due to defective vote counting machines. Earlier, we visited Commonwealth Elementary School, wherein some of the voters said that one of their vote counting machines also experienced problems, so that they were told to leave their ballots while the VCM are being fixed. Based on our monitoring, defective VCMs have also been recorded at Culiat Elementary School, Tandang Sora Elementary School, Corazon Aquino, Pasong Tamo, Payatas, Teachers Village, and Diliman voting centers. The poll body insists voters have two options when the VCM is not working. First, wait until it is repaired or leave the ballots under the custody of the Electoral Board. But some voters are not confident on this second option.
So wala pong reason para huminto ang botohan, magka-issue man po sa VCM.
We have watchers in place at doon po naman sa hindi makapag-feed ng balota, meron po tayong watchers. Nandiyan po ang PPCRV, wag po kayong matakot.
We are here at Christ the King Seminary Voting Center in Quezon City, and like in other areas, they've also experienced glitches in vote counting machines. For example, there's one VCM here that refused to read the ballot and hang during the process, so it somehow caused delay during the voting process, but it was resolved by the technical team of the election officials here at Christ the King. Back to you, Sam.
Tristan, let's go to the mayoral race, as it's among the hotly contested battlegrounds in Metro Manila.
Well, incumbent Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte cast her vote here at Christ the King, and then Congressman Mike Defensor cast his vote at La Vista in Quezon City. Both of them said that they gave their best during the course of the local campaign. Both of them are hoping that elections will be fair and that the COMELEC will address the concerns and issues of the voters immediately. Back to you.
Tristan, before I let you go, we have over an hour left before the closing of polling centers. May mga last-minute voter ka bang nakikita dyan?
Sa ngayon, Sam, wala na. Halos paubos na yung mga bumuboto dito sa Christ the King, no? Pero nakausap natin yung election official at ang sabi nga nila, they most likely close on time, which is around 7 p.m. But they are willing to extend kung may mga magdatingan pang last voter, because sabi naman ng COMELEC, pwede naman daw i-extend yung deadline for the voting kung marami pa rin nasa area. But so far, ayon sa nakikita natin, either mas maaga or eksaktong alas 7 magsasara yung botohan dito sa Christ the King. Balik sa'yo.
Tristan Nadalo there giving us the latest from Quezon City. Speaking of last-minute voters, here's something for those casting their votes at Rizal High School in Pasig, one of the largest secondary institutions in the world. Behind me is a map of Rizal High through the eyes of Ways. Here is Rizal High School. Now, if you're on this stretch, this is Dr. Sixto Antonio Avenue. Do expect moderate traffic. As you can see, our Waze map is beaming in orange. Moving on, the MMDA deploys over 2,300 personnel for the elections. When I spoke to the MMDA Task Force Special Operations and Anti-Colorum Unit Head Bong Nebrija on Friday, he said most of these employees are traffic enforcers. They're tasked to assure smooth traffic on key areas, in particular the Philippine International Convention Center in Pasay City, where the canvassing of votes for the national elections will take place. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Election Day 2022. Time right now is 5:45. All 10 presidential candidates have cast their votes since polling centers opened at 6 this morning. Senator Panfilo Lacson and Senator Bongbong Marcos are among the early birds. Lacson got to vote in his home turf, Cavite, at exactly 7:08 a.m. Cavite is the second most vote-rich province in the country, with over 2.3 million registered voters. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos was in Ilocos Norte, the bailiwick of Marcos family. He voted around 7 this morning. Constituents in his home province gave him over 96% of the votes when he ran as vice president in 2016. Over at the country's capital, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno cast his vote around 11:20 a.m. Speaking to the media, Yorme expressed his gratitude to those who voted for him.
Mga kababayan, tiyagain natin. Total, isang beses lang to sa 6 na taon. At ito ay hindi tungkol sa akin bilang kandidatong presidente o sa amin. Ito'y tungkol sa buhay ninyo.
Meantime, Vice President Leni Robredo, the second highest official in the land, had to fall in line for almost 2 hours just to cast her vote in Magarao, Camarines Sur. Boxing icon and Senator Manny Pacquiao cast his vote at the Kiamba Central Elementary School in Sarangani. Pacman skipped the line of voters outside the classroom and was allowed to head straight to a vacant chair to fill in his ballot. Other candidates casting their votes today are Calyori de Guzman in Cainta, Rizal, Ernie Abella in Silang, Cavite, while Norberto Gonzalez cast his vote in Balanga Town in Bataan. And finally, Faisal Mangondato voted in Marantao, Lanao del Sur. The world is watching as Filipino voters decide today on who will be their next president for 6 years. With more than 1.5 months to go in his term, President Rodrigo Duterte is back in Davao City today as he casts his vote before 5 p.m. Joining me now is our senior correspondent David Santos from Daniel Aguinaldo National High School in Davao City. David, kumusta ang pagboboto ng Pangulo?
Well, Sam, President Duterte casting his ballot here, like you mentioned, here at the Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School here in Davao City. Almost about an hour ago, the President voting at clustered precinct number 1245A, the same precinct he had voted in the past two national elections. This is also the same polling precinct where his daughter, Davao City Mayor and Vice Presidential contender Sara Duterte voted earlier today, shortly after his arrival in this polling place. The President managed to come close to voters still waiting for their turn to cast their ballots. The President spent about 10 to 15 minutes to complete the voting process. He then emerged from his designated polling precinct amid cheers from voters here chanting his name. He then spoke to them briefly to address the crowd that had gathered outside his polling precinct. Speaking in Visaya, the President basically reiterated the message he delivered on last Friday, during the meeting de Avance for his children seeking elective posts led by Sara Duterte, and as well as Baste Duterte, who's gunning for the mayoralty post here in Davao City. Now, Mr. Duterte thanking Davaoeños again for accompanying him to his journey to Malacanang and keeping his family in politics for several years. He ended his speech by saying that even if he steps down from Malacanang weeks from now, he will continue to be a, quote, servant of the people. Back to you, Sam.
From Daniel Aguinaldo National High School in Davao City, David Santos there reporting. Back here in Metro Manila, as we're still expecting last-minute voters heading to several polling precincts. Check out these live pictures of EDSA White Plains Avenue in Quezon City. Now, as of 5:50, whether you're north to Santolan and Cubao, that's on the right lane, or south to Ortigas Avenue in San Juan. On the left lane, you can expect a quick drive. Vehicles are zipping through both stretches. Now on to Sucat Road in Parañaque City. Great news for those of you heading to Alabang. Barely any vehicles on that stretch. Sorry, this is Alabang Viaduct. Now, if you're northbound on the right lane, barely any vehicles, so no worries for you. And you can expect the same situation on the left lane. On to the price you pay on fuel. Oil companies are welcoming the election week with heftier prices at the pump. Beginning tomorrow, May 10th, Flying V, Sea Oil, and Petron will impose a hefty 5 peso and 85 centavo hike on every liter of kerosene. While Clean Fuel, Flying V, Phoenix Petroleum, Sea Oil, and Petron will raise gasoline and diesel prices both by 4 pesos and 20 centavos per liter. Other companies have yet to announce their fuel price adjustments. This comes after a slight rollback last week. With a little over an hour until polling centers close, let's take a closer look at the biggest voting site in Rizal, one of the top vote-rich provinces in Luzon. Our Chrissy Di Matulak is there. Chrissy, how's the situation there?
Well, Sam, lines are still long here at the Cainta Elementary School in Rizal, with just a few hours away before precincts or voting precincts officially close. Earlier in the day, the lines here were barely moving because of a vote counting machine that was not working. So voters were asked to sign a waiver and leave their shaded ballots with the teachers who are serving as Board of Electoral members.
So far, operations here are smooth sailing and we have not received reports of machines that have bogged down. Presidential candidate Leody de Guzman cast his vote in the school around 7:30 a.m. Win or lose, the Labor leader says he will make his way back to the streets to continue fighting for the rights of all laborers. He adds that he was satisfied with his campaign.
Ako'y naniniwala na tumago sa kanila yung aking panawagan na yung aking plataforma na laman ay para sa pagbabago. Tingin ko nakarelate sa kanila yung lahat ng mga taong nakarinig ng aking plataforma.
There are 10 voters allowed per classroom. Teachers who are serving as Board of Election Inspectors advised voters to pack a lot of patience going to the voting precincts since minor glitches are inevitable. Back to you, Sam.
Chrissy, glad to see you. Chrissy Dimatulak with an update from Cainta Elementary School in Rizal. Just a few hours left before voting ends. We asked netizens how was their experience. On Twitter, this netizen says, maselan yung VCM. Kapag hindi naihulog kaagad yung previous balota, sasabihin may paper jam. Sabi niya, pumila sila ng kapatid niya 5:30 ng umaga at natapos ng 7 a.m. Another Twitter user says, wala raw pinagbago ang sistema at mabagal. Over on Facebook, Van Pira Patage had a smooth experience in his precinct. Sabi niya, organized doon and there was a separate line for senior citizens. Seems like the same is true for Tony De Leon Piamonte. He says, I already knew my precinct and list number, arrived early and was first in line. He adds he was done voting in 15 minutes. As we await the closure of polling precincts in just about an hour, we give you first some transport stories making headlines. The number coding scheme is suspended. The MMDA says this will help motorists easily go in and out of their polling precincts to vote. The LRT2 gives free rides to persons with disabilities today. Transportation officials recommended this to help those planning to go to voting centers. You can count on CNN Philippines for live, in-depth coverage of this year's general elections. We'll keep a close watch on the progress of today's vote, and we'll bring you the results as we get them. Catch the continuation of our special presentation, the Filipino Votes Election Day 2022 at 6 p.m.
Including the president.
And that's it for today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's take care of each other. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
For a number of hours every 6 years, Filipinos get a chance to chart their future by electing leaders to more than 18,000 positions, including the president. The Filipino Votes on this big day. More than 65 million voters making their voices heard by one shade on the ballot and making a stand for a better life emerging from the health and economic crisis, and against corruption, crime, illegal drugs, and many more. On this day that will go down in history, the future of the country is at stake. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes 2022.
Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes 2022. All 10 presidential candidates have cast their votes this morning. Despite some reports of defective vote counting machines and SD cards, millions of Filipinos trooped to polling precincts to exercise their right to vote. Let's check the situation in Manila before poll precincts officially close. Our Stanley Gahete is there. Stanley, go ahead.
Pinky, just like many others, Legarda Elementary School in Sampaloc, Manila experienced malfunctioning vote counting machines or VCMs. 5 of them to be exact. As early as 7 a.m., senior citizen Conrad Sandoval complained about the unmatched result he saw from the receipt. He asked a Board of Election Inspector or BEI to open the VCM. The inspector instead advised Mr. Sandoval to file a complaint directly to the COMELEC in Manila because his situation should not delay or stop the voting.
Suggest you to change that machine because the following voters, but it appears that is wrong. Well, that is not the will of the people. That is the will of the machine.
Kasi hindi natin pwedeng i-disrupt yung election proceedings.
Because of him.
Because of him. Kung meron siyang i-contest regarding doon, doon na siya mismo sa COMELEC makipag-usap.
After a while, another VCM from the same clustered polling precinct malfunctioned. Some registered voters who have been waiting for more than 30 minutes complained when they were advised to sign a waiver that they agreed to put their cast ballots in a black box and leave the area.
Mga 30 minutes.
Ano nangyari talaga, ma'am?
Ayaw talaga magbasa ng machine.
So paano yun? Paano yun tinanggap?
Hindi pa. Kasi hindi naman pinasok pa ngayon. Nilagay mo na nila sa, dun sa parang box na black na yun. Ayun,
Ang ginagawa po natin ay, nire-report natin siya at ina-update agad natin si COMELEC at si DESO na kailangan agad ng mabilisang aksyon at tugon doon sa nagma-malfunctioning ng mga machine.
Meanwhile, Manila mayoral candidate Hani Lacuna cast her vote at Legarda Elementary School at around 9 a.m. It all went smoothly.
Una pong tungkulin ko sa pagboto, hindi lang po sa Manila kundi para sa buong Pilipinas. Hopefully matapos o makaboto halos lahat bago po dumating ang pag-close po ng 7 p.m.
At Aurora Aragon Quezon Elementary School in San Andres, Malate, Manila, an overheated ceiling fan inside precinct 2797 AC caught fire and briefly disrupted the voting exercise. The precinct was immediately transferred to the school auditorium.
Mga nangyari sa mga around 8:30 kasi medyo nagkaroon ng konting amoy ng electrical wire tapos napansin na lang namin biglang pumutok yung ceiling fan. Bigla na siyang pumutok tapos umapoy. Then kaming BI, first namin ginawa sinave namin yung BCM. Nababa namin siya agad.
Nagpanik ang mga tao pero na-fix naman, dumating naman ang Bureau of Fire natin with some police officers.
In less than an hour, voting will close, but there are still long voters' queues here at Legarda Elementary School, and they are all determined to cast their votes. And that's the latest here in Manila. Back to you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot, Stanley Gaheta. And now let's get some reports from the regions. Long lines and technical problems greeted thousands of Cebuanos at the polling precincts today. Our Cebu-based correspondent Dale Israel joins us live from there. Dale, maayong gabi.
Mayong gabi, Pinky. The long lines of people waiting to get their chance to vote at the polling centers did not subside here in Cebu City, especially in the barangays with huge number of voters. In fact, at least 28 people were taken in by ambulances while waiting in line in different polling centers as of noontime. The Cebu City Ambulance Services has asked the public for patience when calling for emergencies since they are extremely busy attending to people who are fainting and those that seeking medical assistance due to dizziness. Apart from the huge crowd, there are also problems with some vote counting machines. In the entire Cebu province, there are about 50 defective VCMs that eventually were repaired or replaced by COMELEC's tech personnel. Among the areas affected include the towns of Cordova, Barili, Oslob, and the cities of Cebu and Mandaue. During a joint press conference at Camp Serie Osmeña in Cebu City, COMELEC Regional Director Dennis Ausan sought understanding amid mounting complaints from voters. There are also those that had to stand in line for up to 4 hours before they could cast their vote. Ausan said there is just enormous interest from the people to participate in this year's elections, with COMELEC making sure the health and safety protocols are followed. In Central Visayas region, there are also at least 3 defective VCMs that need to be replaced. These are from Duero Town in Bohol and 2 other machines from 2 precincts in Lasi, Siquijor Province. Back to you, Pinky.
Daghang salamat, Dale Israel reporting live from Cebu. Meanwhile, now we are going to be joined by Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya. Before we discuss pressing issues today, we just want to know that we want you to know that you only have 52 minutes left before the polling precincts close. Yusek, nakita ko nakaboto na po kayo.
Yes, nakaboto na ako. And to those our countrymen na hindi pa po nakakaboto, please do so. You have to be at the polling center at exactly 7. And your name must be listed by the BEIs for you to be able to vote, because if you arrive at 7:01 or 7:02 and you're not in the list, you won't be able to vote anymore.
Kailangan nandun talaga yung pangalan mo. Did you have problems voting?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I'm glad. No, but before I went to my polling center, I first visited, as I said, in BF Homes before we started the show, I first visited my old polling center, and nakita ko doon there was a malfunctioning voting machine.
Okay, tell us more about that.
It was, yeah. Ang problema kasi when a voting counting machine malfunctions, it starts a domino of effect, no? Kasi nung umaga, I saw really a lot of people. I think it will be higher than the last election. The interest here is very high. A lot of people want to vote. So, siguro kalahating kilometro yung pilang nakita ko kanina.
Saan to?
Inside BF Homes,
also,
the polling center, yes. So, nasa kalsada yung mga tao, ang haba-haba ng pila. But when I got to my polling center, it wasn't as long as the one across PCJ.
Bakit ganun? Siguro kasi maiinggit yung iba dito, haba-haba ng linya, dito halos wala.
Well, based on my experience kanina, when I went inside the polling place itself, yung sa loob ng school, maayos na siya. No? Pag nandun ka na, nag-aantay ka na, and then the voting machine is functioning perfectly, wala nang problema. But it's really the crowd outside. I think parang dumagsa talaga yung mga tao. They really want to vote. And because of our clustered precinct system, where only one counting machine caters to several precincts, talagang dagsaan talaga yung
Kasi
mga tao.
clustered nga, kaya nga tinatawag na clustered, ipinagsama-sama sa isang vote counting machine. We have about 106,000 clustered precincts with about 106,000 VCMs as well.
Yes.
And sabi ng COMELEC, there were supposed to be 2,000 extra VCMs. Just also for everybody's siguro information, itong mga problema ng problems on the jamming or on the VCMs in general, this is really the responsibility of the COMELEC. No? Hindi po ito DILG. Pero pwedeng magsumbong sa inyo.
Well, even if magsumbong sa amin, baka di na namin ma-actionan because this is something that is under the jurisdiction of the COMELEC, and for the purposes of running the elections and running the vote counting machines, it's the Department of Education who is the deputized agents of the COMELEC. Kami naman, we're mostly focused on the security preparations and to ensure that there are election-related violence is addressed and other support needed by the COMELEC.
So let's talk about that. Ito pong mga security preparations. There was a press briefing a while ago, COMELEC together with the AFP and PNP, and before we went on break, sabi ko, we have you to talk about this. Tell us, let's start first with, is there anything near in Luzon? Mag-umpisa muna tayo sa Luzon.
Yes, meron tayong 2 incidents in Nueva Ecija. This is the most that we have right now, no? So tama sila COMELEC kanina when they said that this was generally a peaceful election. But, sabi ko nga kanina that I told you, there's still the canvassing part. And sa canvassing, it starts at 7 o'clock, no? And baka mamaya may mga lugar na mawalan ng kuryente. See?
Yeah, so, that's part 2.
Yeah.
Just to be very frank about it.
That's right.
First is botohan. Pangalawa, bilangan.
Yes.
Okay.
Pero yung bilangan kasi natin ngayon, hindi gaya nung dati na manual. So, pag pinasok mo yung balota, binilang na yon. So, all that the BEIs need to do, the electoral boards need to do, is to total it, no? Press a certain button which will total it and then transmit it. So,
to the COMELEC server.
To the COMELEC server. So, really, the challenge now is to get that transmitted. The challenge is kailangan natin itawid, kumbaga. Itawid natin ito until makanvas, ma-transmit and then ma-proklama yung mga nanalo. So there's still a few days that we have to fix our attention to make sure that everything falls into the right places.
You were talking about Nueva Ecija.
Yes. We have 2 incidents there. The first one was in San Antonio, Nueva Ecija, where we arrested 7 people and confiscated 8 assorted firearms. No? There was a convoy of a certain mayor there, no, which figured in an incident. So we had to make some arrests. The other one is the more recent one. It's a General Tino in Nueva Ecija, where 23 individuals were arrested. And there was a election-related violence where 5 individuals were wounded and firearms were also confiscated by the Philippine National Police.
Yun yung tinatanong kanina during the press briefing. Tinatanong, ano ba ang PAG, yung private armed groups?
Yes.
What constitutes a PAG, yung private armed group?
Well,
paano ho ba pag private armed group na yun?
Well, the President has made several statements about this. No, he defined a private armed group following the Alunan Doctrine. The President said that politicians are entitled to only 2 bodyguards, armed bodyguards, and anything in excess of 2 is already a private armed group. So we're following that principle. In this case, very clear, this is a private armed group because it exceeds the Alunan Doctrine of 2 armed individuals per politician.
Okay, that's in Luzon. Anything in Visayas? Kasi medyo marami-rami ho ata yung Mindanao.
Yes. Surprisingly, I have nothing right now. No? This is the serious incidents. No? We have no reports in the Visayas. And isang pala, Pinky, before I forget, we practically have no failure of election anywhere in the country today. No failure of election because in Cotabato, where there was a threat against the teachers and the teachers refused to render election service, the PNP took over. There's a law which was passed several years back which made election service voluntary, and in that same law, it authorized the PNP as the agency of last resort. So we prepared several police officers for election duty just in case the teachers won't arrive or won't appear. And buti na lang, we had 525 police officers who served in Cotabato City as Special Board of Election Inspectors. So the elections are proceeding in Cotabato. There was a delay in Tubunan kanina, but it was not because of election-related violence. It was because of a new precinct which was created. But practically no failure of election in any polling precinct in the country.
Okay, that's good to hear. Just for context, yung sa Cotabato, yan ho ba yung mga guro na ilang beses napalitan?
I'm not entirely sure, Pinky, no?
Okay.
I don't have the data right now, but I was just told before I came to your show, now we had 175 precincts which are manned right now by police officers from the PNP in Cotabato City.
And then let's go to, well, there was a question, I hope we can bring that back rather on our teleprompter, yung pong sa Maguindanao. There
Yes.
was a problem
Buluan.
there. Yeah, yung... Go ahead, sir.
Yes, we have a report about an incident in Buluan, Maguindanao. This was yesterday, no? And the area has already been secured. The PNP is in control of the situation, and the elections are proceeding as planned. So, okay na yon, that area. And in almost all the areas where there were election-related violence, may report lang, pasok yung ating kapulisan, secure the area, and the elections are proceeding as planned. Meron lang isa, Pinky, yung sa Lanao del Sur, where some VCMs were destroyed. No, we're still awaiting the report from the Police Regional Office BARM about this. No, before I came to the show,
Lanao del Sur yan.
yes, Lanao del Sur in Barangay Magunaya, Binidayan, Lanao del Sur.
Okay.
And I think some of our netizens were the ones that shared this. It became viral.
I think I saw that, but you know, we were still trying to verify that. I saw that on Twitter as well.
Yes.
So, hindi pa resolved yung problema doon?
We also forwarded this to the Directorate for Operations in Lanao del Sur to verify if this is indeed an incident. We don't have feedback yet from BARM.
Yung what the AFP spokesperson a while ago was saying, si Colonel Demi Zagala, there were a number of incidents in Mindanao, grenade throwing, etc. Meron pong incident dun din po sa Maguindanao last night. There were explosions in Datu Unsay and Sharif Agwak.
Yes, yes. But fortunately, there were no casualties reported. So, alam niyo naman sa BARM, di ba? These things are part and parcel of the way they do things there. So, what is good is that there were no injuries among any of our countrymen, and the elections proceeded as planned.
But Colonel Zagala was talking about some injuries, no? Actually, in the Visayas, sorry, just to jump to that, there was a councillor of Lapu-Lapu City that was killed. It was a reporter who said that a while ago, reported that to us, by 3 men eve of the elections.
Yeah, in Lapu-Lapu City.
Right, that one.
Oh, ano yan, that's a highly urbanized area. Lapu-Lapu City, where the airport is located.
But I think it's an island near Lapu-Lapu City. I'll give you the details, sir, a little later on. It was our stringer who reported that a while ago. So, your assessment so far, again, I know what you're saying. This is just the, one half of the elections. So far, generally peaceful because the reports are coming out that there are about more or less 2,000 problems with VCMs. But if you really look at the totality of that, according to the COMELEC, 106,000 VCMs, it's a small percentage. But
that's right.
Abala pa rin po.
Yes, abala doon sa mga lugar, and these are the places that are in the news, of course, no? Because before I came in, I just came from Caloocan City High School. Things are doing well there. I went through several polling precincts and several buildings. People are happy. The teachers are tired. They want to go home.
Yeah.
But essentially, things have moved fast there. In the morning, there were long lines, but in the afternoon, everything has been resolved. So generally, if we look at the national situation, as of right now, we are, generally it's been peaceful. People have been able to cast their vote, and we don't see any disenfranchisement. Although, I do hear 1 or 2 complaints about misreading of the ballot, just like what the elderly gentleman shared to us in your report, that he voted for someone else, but the machine reflected a different candidate. So I also heard about that and saw some reports, but I think that is something for the COMELEC to address.
Sabi niya, hindi niya boto yon, boto ng makina yon.
Yes.
Yun ang sinabi ng elderly man a while ago. Let's talk about briefly vote buying.
Yes.
Is this solely the responsibility now of the COMELEC? Does the DILG have any participation here in trying to address issues on vote buying?
Yes, we, in fact, in 2019, a week before the election, we were able to, for the first time, constitute a task force against vote buying under the leadership of the COMELEC at the time. So for this election last year, early last year, we already wrote to COMELEC to reconstitute the task force contra Bigay. Unfortunately, it took them a while for them to issue the COMELEC resolution and the guidelines. It just came out this week. So a few days ago, the DILG Secretary Anyo directed the organization of anti-vote buying teams. No, I'm not saying that we won't be able to, we can't act on election vote buying if the teams are not constituted. Of course, the responsibility is always there, but sometimes it makes more sense if you have a dedicated team, whose job is to just address reports of vote buying. And unfortunately, I don't know. I'm waiting for the reports from the ground of how many of these teams were actually constituted, and if they were able to act on allegations of vote buying.
But are you sure the groups have been formed?
That's why I wanted to find out, no? Because the guidelines came late in the day, and we had to issue the directive to the field. And the directive of Secretary Anyo was to organize 1 team per city and then another team per congressional district.
Yeah.
So the target was to have as many teams as there are cities and there are congressional districts in a certain province.
Okay, but the approval from the COMELEC came a little late.
Yes, it took some while. In fact, I had to call the COMELEC Monday.
But why is that? Katulong na sana ho kayo para tingnan to mga report kahit nakikita sa Twitter.
Well, I guess the COMELEC had a lot on its hands, and it took a while for them to go through the guidelines because the guidelines have to be issued because it's necessary for the agencies to understand what their responsibilities are, like the DILG, the PNP, and then the Department of Justice, who will, of course, file the necessary cases in court. So we were hoping that the guidelines would be issued sooner, but unfortunately, it wasn't.
Yusek, any last reminder to voters and to the public?
I hope we rally behind the winner. You know, at the end of the day, democracy is about the majority, you know, whoever is the voice of the majority. Definitely, there will always be a minority in any democratic nation or democratic country. So once the winners are proclaimed, we should give them a chance to prove themselves. Whoever wins in the elections, let's give them the benefit, you know, of a good honeymoon period so that they can start serving the country with all the possible leeway that we can give, because at the end of the day, they did win the election.
Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya, sir, thank you so much. Good to see you again in person.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CNN Philippines is your most trusted destination for live, up-to-the-minute, in-depth coverage of today's historic vote. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Election Day 2022. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, has called for a 3-day intense prayer for the 2022 general elections, which started yesterday. In a statement, CBCP President Bishop Pablo Virgilio David said, prayer is the best way to fight this battle. He recommended for the dioceses in the country to keep their parishes open and the Blessed Sacrament open as well for adoration from May 8 to 10. He also urged communities of consecrated persons to do the same in their convent chapels. On election day at 6 a.m. or upon the opening of polling precincts, church bells rang for 10 minutes to remind the faithful to exercise their civic duty as citizens to vote and to do so in the spirit of prayer. Let's get an update on the elections in Ilocos Norte. Our senior correspondent, Lois Calderon, is there. Lois, go ahead.
Pinky, voting precincts will close in less than an hour from now. And election officials are doing a final call for those registered voters who have yet to cast a ballot. That wraps up a humid 13-hour voting window that began with a sort of a spectacle that we see only every 6 years. Supporters of presidential frontrunner Bongbong Marcos jostled with local, foreign journalists, one side trying to get a glimpse of the Ilocano leader, while us trying to film him casting his vote and get sound bites. True to form, as he has been for the most part of the 3-month campaign period, Marcos evaded journalists who were boxed out and banned from entering the polling precinct. Through the classroom window, both supporters and journalists watched Marcos cast his vote here at the Mariano Marcos Memorial Elementary School in Batac, Ilocos Norte. It's the hometown of his father, the late President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., and Ilocos Norte is a vote-rich region with nearly 500,000 registered voters. We spoke to some of them.
Mas peaceful po kumpara sa ibang nababalita kasi nanonood din po ako kanina ng news and nakita ko mas peaceful po dito sa presinto namin.
Maganda po yung flow. Pero pag nababalitaan ko po, para may mga aberya, ganito ganyan, mga machine. Pero dito po naman sa amin, maganda po.
Tahimik siya.
Wala po kayo na-encounter na...
Ay, wala po. Wala po.
With Marcos was his son Sandro, but Sandro did not vote here. The younger Marcos was registered in Lawag City's 1st District, where he is running for a congressional seat, challenging to unseat the incumbent congresswoman who is a daughter of veteran politician Rudy Fariñas. For decades, these two political families, the Marcoses and the Fariñases, had clear demarcation lines, with the Marcoses ruling the capital Batac and the Fariñases Lawag. It's not just the congressional seat that's worth watching as the Marcos family tries to get a foothold of the north. Rudy Fariñas is running for governor, which pits him against Ilocos Norte Governor Matthew Marcos Manotoc. We spoke earlier with Governor Manotoc.
I think it's always best to give people options and let them decide. No? So nasa tao naman po.
Apart from his nephew Matthew and son Sandro, there were other members of the Marcos family we saw here. Former First Lady Imelda Marcos arrived a few minutes after her son Bongbong left. The flamboyant Mrs. Marcos wore a red Filipiniana gown. Pinky?
Lois, any issues on the vote counting machines there?
Well, there were supporters from the Marcos camp claiming that there are vote counting machines that were printing wrong receipts or even the wrong vote. But we spoke with a COMELEC official of Batac City, and she said that there was just one counting machine that had technical glitches, and that was replaced. Let's listen in.
May isa akong pinalitan na VCM because hindi pumapasok yung mga balota. So, isa lang naman. Pero naging okay na nung napalitan ko yung VCM. May process po kasi kami niyan. Kapag hindi na kaya talaga ng technical, papalitan na. May mga contingency naman kaming VCM.
Election results in the provincial level, the governor won't be known until tomorrow. That's according to the COMELEC. But as early as before midnight, the COMELEC itself might announce the results at the local level, the local race up to mayor. That's because after the precincts here close a little past 7, the results machines will be transmitting results to the City Board of Canvassers. That goes all the way up to provincial level and then to the National Board of Canvassers. Pinky, back to you.
Thank you so much, Lois Calderon. There, reporting to us from Ilocos Norte. We only have a few minutes left before all the polling precincts close. Pero sa Legazpi City, Albay, mahaba pa daw ang pila ng mga botante. Alamin natin kung bakit mula sa ating Legazpi City-based correspondent Rose Olarte. Rose, ano mangyayari dyan? Aabot ba yung mga botante bagong 7 p.m. deadline?
Yeah, Pinky, ilang minuto na lamang pero dagsa pa rin at mahaba pa ang pila sa ilang voting centers dito sa Bicol Region. Maliban sa limitadong pagpapapasok sa mga boboto sa loob ng mahigit 6,600 voting precincts dito sa buong region. Ang pagpalyari ng mga vote counting machines ang nagpapatagal ng botohan. Ang ilang guro ay ginagamitan na ng meter stick o kaya walis tingting ang mga VCM na nagkaka-paper jam. Nang pumalya ang VCM kung saan bumoto kanina si Legazpi City Mayor Noel Rosal, ay konting taktak at pukpok ang ginamit ng election sellers para muling gumana ang equipment. Dalawang options naman ang binigay ni COMELEC Bicol Acting Director Jasmine Bellarmino. Ang hintaying makumpuni ng technicians o kaya mag-waive ang botante na ma-review ang resibo ng kanyang boto. Hindi pa sinabi ng COMELEC Bicol kung ilang VCMs ang pumalya sa 6,656 voting precincts dito. Ganun pa man, umaasa ang election official na sa 3.9 million na rehistradong botante sa Kabikulan, aabot 80% ang voter turnout dito sa halalan na ito. Mula sa Legazpi City, Rosa Olarte, CNN Philippines.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Rose Olarte, mula sa Legazpi City. In Dumaguete City, 2 or more precincts are sharing the sole vote counting machine that's working. This after the VCM shut down due to technical issues. On the line, our Dumaguete-based correspondent, Roy Bustillo. Roy, Wala bang spare o extra VCM ang COMELEC dyan?
It takes longer for voters to cast their ballots as compared to the previous election. One voter says the long wait could even last 4 to 5 hours. One election officer says it used to be the one precinct is assigned to one counting machine. This time, 3 precincts share one unit. Meanwhile, the authorities have received a report of supposed robbery in Negros Oriental. The victim was identified as Marcela Granton Parcosis, the incumbent vice mayor, and now running for mayor in the municipality of Cebuan. According to the police, 3 men on board a motorcycle arrived early morning, posing as supporters of Parcosis and asked for monetary help. When the vice mayor opened the door, the suspects forcibly entered the house and declared a hold-up. The unidentified men stole an undetermined amount of money. In the meantime, the local COMELEC office convened the Provincial Board of Canvassers this afternoon, and the proceeding were suspended, and the canvassing will be back later at 7. For CNN Philippines, this is Roy August Basilio from Dumaguete City.
Thanks a lot, Roy Bustillo, reporting to us from Dumaguete. Okay. At kumuha tayo ng update ng botohan sa Dipolog City. Nasa linya ang stringer doon na si Angelica Obina. Angelica, kamusta dyan sa Dipolog?
Okay lang po dito sa Dipolog, pero manimikos tayo galing sa munisipalidad ng Sukon. Nagsagawa ng hot pursuit operation ang pulis sa Zamboanga del Norte matapos umanong tangayin ng mga armadong katao ang 2 supporter ni Sukon mayoralty candidate Cesar Soriano kahapon ng madaling araw sa barangay Sarabe sa munisipalidad ng Sukon. Base sa report, 5 nakabonet ang dumukot sa mga biktima. Kinilala ng mga pulis ang biktima na sina Jerry Salva na nakaligtas at si Teredeo Lauria na hanggang sa ngayon ay hinahanap pa. Inalam pa kung anong motibo ng mga kidnapper. Nag-uulat para sa CNN Philippines. Angelica Obina, RTN Katy, Dipolog City.
Maraming salamat, Dipolog-based correspondent Angelica Obina. So, let's now talk to political analyst and lawyer Tony Lavina. Good to see you again, Tony. It's been a while. Okay, I'm going to start with this. Your assessment in today's elections. It's about to close.
Maybe not, because if you're actually in the precinct, it should not close. So Yusa Alba is not actually a problem as long as they're online for the precinct, because the precinct should not close until everyone has voted.
True.
But actually there's a call, and I don't know if the COMELEC will respond to this, to extend the voting hours for 2 hours. No? Kasi ang dami masyadong na affected dito sa this VCM malfunction in many precincts will cause disenfranchisement. Especially, we don't want that for first-time voters. I mean, because we don't want to disappoint. They're very excited. This is a very contentious, very important elections, and people are actually passionate about their votes. So, you know, if it were just 1 or 2, that's fine, right? I mean, you can find some solution. But hundreds at least, maybe a couple of thousand VCMs have not
There were
worked,
issues, yeah.
it seems. And when you add that up, that's still 1 million votes, no? Because it's 500 to 600 per VCM. That might not actually be ballots that will actually not be cast. In a close election, and I will bet that this is a close election. I could be wrong, because the survey seems to suggest it will be a landslide, but if the other scenario happens and it's a close election, 1 billion votes makes a difference. 200,000 votes is the margin between VP Lenny and Senator Marcos in 2016. So I would urge the COMELEC to consider that request for a 2-hour extension. Anyway, they already announced essentially that they will not be able to start the canvassing
until
at the national level, which is a senatorial, because we don't canvass presidential until tomorrow. So if that's the case, right, I suspect we won't have a lot of results tonight at the national level. Local level, yes, because once it's transmitted, they only have that particular in that particular geography that they then put together. but at the national level, senatorial, presidential, which are just reflected in the server but not yet canvassed, because Congress canvasses it. It doesn't seem like we're going to get a lot tonight from that. So maybe we can calm down and allow that
it's
extension.
good you mentioned that, because when and if the precincts close at 7, people are already wondering what's next. Siyempre, dyan na rin papasok, of course, the PPCRV, which conducts parallel, unofficial. Okay, let's stress that, unofficial count. So you don't think by tonight there will be a lot of votes that will be counted or papasok sa may encode ng PPCRV?
Para the senatorial and presidential, parang they seem to tell us that we shouldn't expect that. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on how that will work, because the transmission comes all at the same time, right? I mean, it's one ballot, it's one result, counting all the votes in that, and they're transmitted to the local level, transmitted to the COMELEC, including a parallel server. The parallel server is just because it's unofficial, but just the same. It's supposed to be exactly the same as what comes in the COMELEC. That's why I call the parallel server. So we'll see, but it seems like we won't be able to get those results, and maybe most of the results will really come in, which is always a problem with the system, because it comes in like, if it comes in lunchtime tomorrow or even early morning later, it comes in like in 50%, right, of the votes already. And then people are just surprised that someone is leading massively already.
And then sometimes, there are questions on that as well. I just want to get your thoughts on, what your thoughts are from the campaign that we've seen, different kinds of campaign that we've seen to Election Day. How has that, you think, how has this evolved, or how different is it from the last elections?
Very different. The stakes are very high. We will have two different Philippines on June 30, not tomorrow or not on Wednesday, because we still have President Duterte until June 30, but we will have a very different Philippines, different way of governance, different approach to corruption, different approach to human rights, different approach to foreign policy. I think the two leading contenders have run good campaigns from a purely vote-getting point of view, but one of the leading candidates have been very difficult to pin down by both media and even by us analysts on what he really stands for. And I mean, what are his policy prescriptions? What is the economic platform that keeps us kind of blind of where we're going. But the biggest difference, Pinky, in these elections is the extent of the disinformation. It's been incredible. I actually chair a movement against disinformation, which is non-partisan, that's been trying to engage with social media platforms, trying to hold people accountable. We've filed cases against government officials. We've filed cases against even a TV franchise for disinformation. A lot of it related to red tagging, but red tagging became an election issue. So that's why it's so important. But candidates have been attacked very viciously by trolls. False information about candidates and their families have been disseminated and successfully. I mean, what I mean is that it has been good for some campaigns to do that, to peddle this information, which worries me, because then in the future it will get even worse. This started in 2016, a little bit in 2019, but this was really bad in 2022.
And that's something that needs to be addressed by the next administration.
I don't trust the government to do it. In fact, regardless of who wins, I won't trust the government to be the one to deal with this information.
So who should take
charge?
charge?
It has to be citizens that has to deal with information. It has to be traditional media, actually. It's very important. That's the irony, right? It's traditional media that now checks, fact checks for everyone, when we used to fact check you more. Very important role in doing that.
Let's talk about, I want to look into issues that to you have taken center stage or should take center stage with the next administration? One, and the second one, issues that have been ignored by the candidates that need to be addressed in the next administration.
Well, the first issue, the most important issue is still the pandemic and exiting out of this pandemic because people are still miserable, people don't have jobs, small businesses are in trouble, the fiscal situation of the government is not in good shape because of the pandemic. So we would expect the president to have very sound economic policies, to clearly show us a stimulus package, for example, for small business, support, more
MSMEs.
support for the basic sectors, for the poor, for workers, for farmers, for the urban poor. We really need to see that. Related to that, for me, it's not just about economic development, it's also about social inequality. The pandemic showed really how bad this country is, how unjust this country is, how bad the poor are treated, how skewed the power relations of this country. I hope that the next administration will deal with that. There are many issues that should have been addressed in this campaign, but it really surprises me that climate change has not come up to be a very important issue. Two, we actually had two big climate events that affected millions while the campaign period and this election is going on. Odette in November, December, that devastated many islands in the Visayas and Mindanao. And Agaton, that right now is still devastating hundreds of communities in the Visayas, right? And you would expect the candidates to actually talk about it, to be passionate about it, to give solutions. Climate justice is the solution. We really have to be serious about that. So I can't, and of course it's probably one of the most important issues for the youth, which is 30 to 40% of the vote. So it boggles my mind why not a single candidate, unfortunately, not a single candidate has made that a signature issue.
You just answered my next question on who among the candidates had actually clear policies on this, but you said none really addressed
Well, there are clear policies. VP Lenny has very clear policies actually about that. Senator Lacson also has clear policies, and I would say that Leody de Guzman would have very clear.
Okay.
But they did not talk about it. In other words, and maybe I'm reflecting about it, maybe because it doesn't differentiate them, because everyone will agree with what they say, so maybe it did not. But it just strikes me that it's not front and center,
yeah.
When this is a country that is ravaged by climate change, and there's so much climate injustice in this country.
We just need to take a very short break. You're watching a CNN Philippines special coverage, the Filipino Votes 2022 Election Day. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are giving you the latest on the national and local elections as voting ends in most polling centers. Let's take a look at what netizens want the next administration to prioritize. We have right now Menchu Macapagal. Menchu, go ahead.
That's right. Thank you very much, Pinky. You know what? We are seeing a lot of national issues raised by netizens, starting with this one from Joel Carlo Tumang. He wants accountability and transparency. Eto muna raw, bago maayos ang lahat ng aspeto ng gobyerno at ng bansa. He also adds, kapag wala ng kurakot, aayos daw lahat. Let's move on to this comment coming from John Paul Santos Corpus. In this order, he wants the focus to be on agriculture, health, education, and national defense. Now, aside from that comment from John Paul, let's head on over to St. Martin on Instagram. This person wants transparency, affordable healthcare, be serious against corruption. So again, the question is, anong gusto mong maging priority ng susunod na administrasyon? Lee Calwagan over on Twitter or at @IamJustLee is asking for the inclusion of disaster risk reduction. And lastly, also from Twitter, this one coming in from Sebastian Bach, ride your own melt, stabilize muna. COVID exit plan. So he has several issues that he wants to focus on. Economy, jobs, and price control. Tapos, COA audit. Then internal cleansing ng executive branch para yung next budget natin buo and mapunta sa tamang paglagyan. Then, of course, education, health, and agriculture. So it seems like this person feels like there's a lot to fix in the government. That's it for now from our netizens. Pinky, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Menchu. So, coming from that tweet, no, from our netizen, there's so many things that needs to be fixed. Let's just add also the debt of the country, which is now at what? Over 12 trillion. Just a couple of weeks ago, ang alam ko, it was at 11 point something. Now it's at 12 point something. What I want to find out from you now is whoever wins this election, do you think that the public will be more aggressive in calling out the winner to fulfill his or her election promises?
I think so. In fact, my column tomorrow, which I wrote already and submitted, is called Stormy Days. It's in the Manila Standard. It's stormy days ahead of the country. Whoever wins, because the economic picture is not good. You know, the leading candidate, we don't even have an idea who his economic managers will be. We have that idea with the other candidate that's also could put up a fight. Whoever wins will encounter a divided country. Even in the case of a landslide, there might be 30-40% that would vote against that person, but that 40% or 30% is very passionate. There won't be destabilization, in my view, if in fact it's a clean and honest elections. People in this country accept election results, so we won't see that. But the destabilization or the problems will come when bad decisions are made. Economy, corruption, foreign policy. When those decisions are made, there'll be a pushback. If Mr. Marcos wins, for sure there'll be a pushback on human rights, on things that people expect he might be doing that's not acceptable. If VP Lenny wins, he will win in a very narrow margin. And people will actually say, the Marcos supporters will actually say that they were cheated. Mm-hmm. So actually either leading candidate, should truly call for a national unity government in the real sense of the word. I mean, my understanding of Mr. Marcos of the national unity government is basically political families from the north and the south coming together for the country. I think national unity is all the sectors of our society. I advocate very strongly, for example, for indigenous people rights and for Lumad rights in Mindanao, for the Lumad schools in Mindanao that have been red tagged and attacked and closed down by this government. I think the next government should actually open up those schools in the spirit of reconciliation and help us move forward. As a country, we should have the resumption of the peace process. Either way, it doesn't matter which of them will win, but it will be stormy for both of them. That's my point.
Dean Attorney Tony Lavinia. Sir, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And keep it here on CNN Philippines for the latest on the national and local elections. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for joining us.